Chapter 2499. Not long after Xiaoping left, many powerful sages appeared on the planet. They were all powerful sages from the Qilin race. They were all at least immemorial ancient realm. Their figures were extremely majestic. They seemed to be above the river of time and space, condensing this space and time. Strange. Why did I suddenly sense that a descendant of the Qilin race might have met with a calamity here? Why haven't I discovered anything yet? One of the immemorial ancient Qilin frowned. I had the same feeling. That's why I rushed over. But there are no signs of a battle here. It's very strange. Another Qilin nodded. The Qilin race had a telepathic connection with one another. They could sense when someone from the same race was in danger. If they were nearby, they would rush over to help. That was why the Qilin race was much more united than the dragon race. But their fertility was too weak. They couldn't compare to the dragon race at all. They were known as dragon-shaped stallions. They were basically giving birth to giant dragons with all their might. It was also because there were too many giant dragons that they could suppress the other god-beast races. Since that's the case, our senses can't be wrong. A descendant of the Qilin race must have met with danger here. But there are no signs of a battle. An ancient Qilin said, so we have two guesses. The first is that they met with an enemy they couldn't fight against. They were killed in an instant. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. The second is that this place is filled with unknown danger. A terrifying disaster suddenly happened and swallowed all the descendants of the Qilin. That's why they disappeared without a trace. The many Qilins exchanged glances. They saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. No matter which guess it was, it proved that this seemingly ordinary place was extremely dangerous. Let's go. Since we're in the eternal light realm, we have to be careful. After all, this is the country of the gods. It's normal for any danger to occur. Even the invincible sages don't dare to say they can survive. Since they've disappeared, we can't get there in time. They're just unlucky. An ancient Qilin said. The other Qilins nodded. Although they were very united, there was no need for them to die for some Qilins who had died long ago. They weren't fools. They would naturally weigh the pros and cons. But after this incident, they were even more cautious. Some places might not seem dangerous on the surface. But if they were careless, they might die. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After exploring the surroundings for a while, these Qilin saints did not find anything, so they could only leave. In a certain space within the world of the classic of mountains and seas, Xiaoping sat cross-legged on the ground with the flower of space-time in his hand. Green ox, how do I consume the time-space flower? He asked. According to the records, it seems that we can just swallow it directly. There is no need to do anything too troublesome. The green ox replied. So that's how it is. That's easy. Xiaoping nodded and swallowed the space-time flower without hesitation. Rumble, after Xiaoping swallowed the space-time flower, the energy of this space-time flower immediately erupted in his body, gushing out huge fragments of the laws of time and space, fusing with every corner of his body. Xiaoping sensed the magic power within his body skyrocketing, and the countless fragments of the law of space rapidly gathered together, forming a total of 3,000 huge fragments of the law of space. Crash! Countless fragments of the law of space gathered in the depths of his sea of consciousness, and the huge magic power also increased rapidly. In the end, the law of space in his body was impressively perfected. A total of 3,000 fragments of the law of space gathered together, and impressively condensed into a hexagonal law of space crystal, emitting rich spatial energy all around it. The crystal of the law of space represented that Xiaoping's law of space was completely perfected. At this moment, his body had also undergone earth-shaking changes. Every cell was covered by a huge amount of spatial energy, and every cell was crystallized and spatialized. It was as if Xiaoping's body at this moment was condensed from countless spatial bodies. The magic power in his body also grew endlessly, and it was so huge that it was frightening. Without a doubt, he had now truly condensed into a spatial body, and all the power of space had condensed into one. He found that his soul, body, and magic power had all eroded the characteristics of space, and it was as if he could merge with the void at any time and become invisible. Every time he traveled through the void, it would not cause any void fluctuations. This feeling. Xiaoping found that after his body had completely spatialized, his speed had increased by many times. With a slight movement, it was as if he had turned into a beam of light, and every cell in his body had turned into light particles. Space was speed. When the speed reached the speed of light, it could interfere with time, causing the surrounding time to slow down and distort the flow of time. He could vaguely sense the existence of time power and the law of time. It was as if he was currently only a step away from the Middle Ancient Realm. Breakthrough. At this moment, when the law of space in his body was completely perfected, Xiaoping did not hesitate to seize this flash of inspiration. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to immediately break through the law of time and step into the Middle Ancient Realm. Previously, he had devoured a few time fruits and he had a lot of experience in comprehending the law of time. In fact, before this, he had sensed the dimension of time several times. Because of this bit of comprehension, as well as the fragments of the law of time left in his body by the time fruits, Xiaoping's pair of hell golden crow eyes seemed to see through the void, and he sensed the existence of the dimension of time. Dong. The soul power in his body blasted out, tearing the void and merging with the origin of the universe. At this moment his body also went through a tremendous change. It was as if at this moment the flow of time was no longer able to affect his body, and there were even traces of extremely mysterious time power in every cell. The power of time and space gathered in his body at this moment. With Xiaoping's body as the center, the flow of time within a range of 1,000 light-years seemed to be a little different from the void of other universes under the cover of the domain, distorting the space-time here. Although this was just a small change, it was a qualitative change as if he had been reborn. I've advanced. I've finally advanced to the Middle Ancient Realm. Xiaoping's body trembled, and his eyes shone with a terrifying light. It was as if the symbol of a clock appeared in the depths of his pupils. He knew that at this moment he had finally comprehended the law of time, grasped the power of time and taken a crucial step forward. This was also the bottleneck that had trapped all the saints, but at this moment Xiaoping had broken through it. The space domain on his body also began to transform into the space-time domain. Chapter 2500. This is the Middle Ancient Realm? Xiaoping sensed that after ascending to the Middle Ancient Realm, even the way he perceived the universe seemed to be different. He could sense the laws of time and space flowing around him. His dermic powers had also increased exponentially. It was more than 10 times stronger than before. It was as if every cell in his body was filled with dense dermic powers. A large number of fragments of the laws of time were scattered around his body. The few time fruits he had devoured earlier had finally taken effect. The fragments of the laws of time were quickly activated in his body and fused with every cell in his body. My divine sense has become stronger. Xiaoping also sensed that his soul energy had also improved by leaps and bounds. If his divine sense had only covered a range of 1,000 light-years before, it had now reached a range of 10,000 light-years. This also caused his soul power to be so tyrannical that it made one's hair stand on end. If he were to use the soul shriek now, even the ancient sages would be affected. Moreover, his understanding of the laws of space had also become deeper. He could teleport 10,000 light-years with a single thought. Even ancient sages might not be able to catch up with such speed. The golden crow of hell's bloodline has also become denser. He also discovered that the seal on his golden crow of hell's bloodline had been unlocked after he had ascended to the Middle Ancient Realm. By now, he had awakened 300 billion golden crow hell cells in his body. Compared to before, he had awakened 100 billion more golden crow hell cells. Right now, the golden crow of hell's bloodline in his body was unbelievably dense. It was as if every bone in his body had been eroded to a dark gold color. It was as if they had become divine bones. The blood in his body was extremely powerful. Any drop of blood could set a planet on fire and turn it into a boundless sea of fire that would not be extinguished even after billions of years. However, these changes were just child's play. The most important change was that Xiaoping's domain had undergone a huge transformation. It had evolved from the previous space domain to the space-time domain. This was a qualitative change. Space-time domain? Xiaoping circulated the power in his body and slowly released the space-time domain on his body. It slowly covered 10,000 light-years. This domain not only contained the laws of space, but it also contained the laws of time. These two types of laws were completely different, yet they existed in perfect harmony. Within the range of this space-time domain, the spatial laws could imprison all spatial barriers, and the temporal laws could control the flow of time, affecting the changes in the enemy's perception of time. Under the envelopment of the space-time domain, it was as if the embryonic form of a world had enveloped him. There was nowhere for him to hide. Very strong. Xiaoping's eyes flashed with a terrifying radiance. He had finally experienced the tyrannical power of the Middle Ages sages. Under the space-time domain, mortals were unable to struggle or move at all. Unless someone had the same brute strength as him that could pierce through all domains as well as an unparalleled strong mana, they would not be able to break free at all and could only obediently be a caged bird. The saints of the Near Ancient Era were as weak as infants in front of the saints of the Middle Era. The space-time domain suppressed down, changing the flow of time around the sage. It was as if time had slowed down dozens of times. Where else could the sage escape to? He also realized that under his space-time domain, he could completely control the flow of time on his body. Could slow down the flow of time. 100 years in his space-time domain would only be 1 year in the outside world. Could also speed up the flow of time. A year in his space-time domain would be 100 years in the outside world. However, the power to control the time laws could only be carried out within his own space-time domain. After leaving this domain, it would not be able to affect the void of other universes. Moreover, controlling the flow of time required a lot of mana. Ordinary sages would not be able to control it for long. Therefore, they would only have such power during intense battles. If someone's space-time domain could cover the entire universe, wouldn't that mean that they could speed up or slow down the universe's time at any time? Xiaoping suddenly thought of this. However, it was impossible to cover the entire universe with one space-time domain. Even the gods of the previous universe era could not do this. This was beyond the imagination of all living beings. It seems that controlling the time laws is not as simple as controlling the flow of time. It seems that I can see some scenes from an ancient era. Xiaoping continued to understand the magical uses of the space-time domain. He realized that when he cast the space-time domain, the entire space-time would become his absolute domain. It was as if anything that had happened in this place would leave behind an image in the depths of space-time. He could completely trace back to ancient times and see what had happened in this place in the past. Amazing. Xiaoping had a new understanding of how powerful the sages of the Middle Ages were. If the sages of the Middle Ages wanted to personally take action and capture a criminal, they could completely retrieve the space-time images left in this place. The criminal would have nowhere to hide. Not many people could escape the pursuit of the sages of the Middle Ages. Wait, if that's the case, then wouldn't I be discovered by some of the sages of the Middle Ages when I committed crimes in various places? Xiaoping was shocked. He suddenly remembered that he might have left a space-time image of himself somewhere. This might be discovered by the sages of the Middle Ages and his true identity as Wu Wudi. Host, please rest assured. At this moment, the system's voice sounded. With the help of the system, whatever the host does or experiences will not leave any traces in this space-time. Therefore, even an invincible sage would not be able to trace the host's traces from the distant space-time through this point. I see. Upon hearing this, Xiaoping immediately felt relieved. He now understood why he had done so many earth-shattering things. Among them, there was no lack of almighties above the sages of the Middle Ages to hunt him down. However, even so, they could not trace his whereabouts. Apart from the fact that he did things secretly and did not leave any clues, the system's help to cover up the image that he left behind in spacetime was also a very important thing. Otherwise, he would have been captured by the other angry sages long ago. Why would he wait until now? Of course, this was not something that the system could do. When the other sages of the Middle Ages and above fought with each other, the power that erupted was enough to shatter spacetime. This way, spacetime would be distorted and there would be no traces of the past. Therefore, this power was only effective against enemies below the sages of the Middle Ages. The other powerful sages also knew about this. Naturally, they would not leave such information behind and let other sages know about his secret. Chapter 2501. Several days later. Xiaoping had finally stabilized his cultivation base at the early ancient Middle Realm. The spacetime domain on his body had also completely stabilized. He had also gained a preliminary control over his magic power and soul power that had skyrocketed. He was now more than 10 times stronger than before. Especially after mastering the spacetime domain, he could control the flow of time around him. This was not as simple as a slight increase in his combat power. Swoosh. At this moment, his figure flashed and he walked out of the mountain and sea scripture world. After all, the Eternal Light Realm was a world of relics with countless treasures. He could not continue to stay in this place. He had to continue searching for treasures. Otherwise, the treasures in the Eternal Light Realm would probably be snatched by others. How could he have a chance? As soon as he appeared, Xiaoping's heart shook. His divine sense spread 10,000 light-years away and sensed the situation in this void. He immediately sensed that there was an intense battle going on thousands of light-years away. This was the benefit of having a powerful divine sense. Usually, he could observe and sense his enemies from thousands of light-years away. However, the range of the enemy's divine sense was at most a few hundred light-years away. It would be amazing if they could reach 1,000 light-years away. How could they detect him? Therefore, if he wanted to, he could immediately attack his enemies from thousands of light-years away. His enemies would not even know what had happened before they died silently. Because of this, the higher one's cultivation base was, the greater the difference in strength between them. It was also more difficult to challenge someone of a higher cultivation base. It had almost become impossible. Thousands of light years away, there were dozens of ancient Middle Ages saints fighting intensely. They were from the Qilin clan, the Dragon clan, the Phoenix clan, the Pishio clan, and other divine beast clans. They had all reached the peak of the ancient Middle Realm and had perfect control over the spacetime domain. Every time they clashed, the spacetime power seemed to collide violently, causing the void in all directions to explode. Many void turbulences were created and spacetime cracks were formed everywhere. Cultivators below the ancient Middle Ages saint level could not get close to such a scene at all. If they dared to get close, they would die. If an immortal saint got close, he would probably be torn apart by the spacetime cracks and die without a complete corpse. Even an immortal body could not resist the spacetime turbulence. Oh, what exactly are they fighting for? Xiaoping raised his eyebrows. He could sense that the reason why these sages were engaged in such an intense battle was because one of the Phoenix race's sages had obtained a treasure that made the other sages drool. Hand it over immediately, Feng Shisan. You don't deserve this Zhurong herb. An ancient saint of the Pishio race yelled at one of the ancient saints of the Phoenix race. Bullshit, I got this Zhurong grass from a certain planet. First come, first served. How could I give it to you? You're dreaming. The ancient saint of the Phoenix clan, Feng Shisan, sneered and remained unmoved. Feng Shisan, you're the one who's dreaming. What do you mean by first come, first served? The universe has always been a place where the strong prey on the weak. If you can't keep the treasure, then give it to us. You don't have the strength to do so, so don't embarrass yourselves in front of us. Hand it over immediately or you'll die. Bullshit, you want to snatch the Zhurong herb in front of me with your strength? Wait until you have the strength to say such words. Our Phoenix race is not to be trifled with. This Zhurong herb is something our Phoenix race must obtain. The group of sages yelled angrily and confronted each other with equal harshness. Obviously this Zhurong herb was too precious. Even if they were all sages of the Middle Ages and had the advantage in numbers, there was no way they would back down. They could only fight to the death. Zhurong herb? Hearing this, Xiaoping blinked his eyes. He immediately asked the knowledgeable green ox what kind of treasure it was that caused so many sages to fight for it at all costs. They would rather die than give it up. It must be an incredible treasure that was beyond imagination. No way, it's the legendary Zhurong herb? Are you kidding me? Isn't this just a legend? How could there be such a sacred herb in the universe? The green ox screamed in disbelief as if he had seen something unbelievable. Oh, then what is this thing? Xiaoping asked curiously. Master, if it's true, then it's an incredible treasure. The green ox said excitedly. It said that there was once a god in the universe named Zhurong. He was said to be one of the strongest fire elemental gods. Wherever he appeared, there would be a sea of fire that filled the sky, burning everything into ashes. The Zhurong herb was watered with the blood of this god Zhurong. It was a sacred herb of heaven and earth that grew from it. It contained an incredible amount of fire origin energy. Some people once said that perhaps this Zhurong herb was not just a simple sacred herb. It might be a little close to a divine herb. No wonder the sages of the Phoenix race went crazy after picking this sacred herb. Obviously, the benefits of this Zhurong herb to the Phoenix race were too great. After consuming it, it would greatly purify the Phoenix bloodline in one's body and enhance the fire origin energy. To be honest, this sacred herb not only has a great effect on the sages of the Middle Ages, but even the sages of the ancient era would not miss this sacred herb. The green ox said that the Zhurong herb was extremely precious and rare in the universe. Compared to sacred herbs like the Flower of Enlightenment and the Crimson Blood Dragon Divine Herb, it was even better. At this point, the green ox became even more excited, almost unable to suppress it. It completely did not think that it would see such a legendary sacred herb one day. Even its old master, the Mountain River Saint, had only heard of the name of this sacred herb. He only knew about it from an ancient book, but he had never seen it before. Now it actually appeared in front of him, alive. What a lucky encounter. There's such a thing? Seems like it's indeed an incredible treasure. Xiaoping touched his chin, extremely excited. Since this was a fire-sacred herb, then it would definitely have great and immeasurable benefits for his Golden Crow bloodline of hell. He instantly smiled. He did not think that he would find such a precious sacred herb as soon as he appeared. His luck was really too good. Master, we have to act quickly and snatch this Zhurong herb. If we continue to delay, there might be ancient sages or even immemorial sages fighting for it. The green ox was worried that there would be more and more competitors. This was just the beginning, just an appetizer. Okay. Xiaoping's figure flashed and traveled thousands of light years. His speed was unbelievably fast. In a breath's time, he immediately arrived near the battlefield. Chapter 2502. At this moment, the battle between the dozens of saints was getting more and more intense. It was as if they were fighting with all their might. They were giving it their all, causing the universe to crumble and the ground to crack. Space-time cracks appeared everywhere. Fortunately, this was the eternal light realm, which was once the abode of the gods. It was extremely sturdy. Even if the saints were fighting, they would not be able to damage much of the eternal light realm. If they were in the outside world, a great thousand world would probably be destroyed by these saints. However, at this moment, a figure appeared in the sky above these saints. It was Xiaoping. Who is it? Many of the saints of the Middle Ages were taken aback. Their hearts were pounding with fear because Xiaoping's appearance was truly soundless and did not cause any fluctuations in space-time. Moreover, their divine senses could not detect Xiaoping's existence at all. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. For a moment they were so scared that they stopped fighting. Bloodline divine ability, Infernal Golden Crow Claw. In an instant, Xiaoping had no intention of talking to these saints. He immediately attacked them with his claw. Boom. After advancing to the ancient middle realm and comprehending the law of time, Xiaoping's strength was so tyrannical that it made people's hair stand on end. With his claw, the flow of time within a radius of 10,000 light-years slowed down. Space-time was distorted. Vaguely, a dark golden claw appeared in the depths of the void. It was so huge that it seemed to be able to easily crush a planet. On the surface of the dark golden claw, dense dark golden runes appeared. The entire claw seemed to be condensed from the rich origin of fire energy, emitting an unparalleled destructive aura. It was as if the entire space-time stopped when this claw appeared. Countless space-time images appeared, as if an epic history was presented, filled with vicissitudes and ancientness. How is this possible? Where did this guy come from? What's going on? These saints were scared half to death. They had never felt such a tyrannical space-time force before. It was as if this claw was attacking them and all of their auras were locked down. Not only was their aura locked down, but time and space had also been frozen. They were like bugs under this giant claw with nowhere to escape. Even though they tried to use their space-time domain to break free from the law of time, it was useless. Their strength was as weak as a baby and they could not resist at all. Dong. With just a single strike, the bodies of these saints were shattered. It was as if they had been crushed into meat paste by a powerful space-time force. They could not even hold on for a second. I'm too strong now. Xiaoping could feel a tyrannical power gushing out from the depths of his body. He discovered that his every move could affect the flow of time and space. As the claw slashed out, the power of time and space revolved around one another, tearing apart each other. Ordinary undying sages would most likely be killed instantly by this claw, their souls destroyed. He didn't die? Xiaoping raised his eyebrows. He realized that the saints from the Middle Ages who had been struck by his claws were not dead yet. However, they were still saints at the peak of the Middle Ages realm who had comprehended the space-time domain. Their vitality was extremely strong and they were not easy to kill. Even so, those who were struck by his claws were still severely injured. Some of the saints from the Middle Ages who had fragile bodies even fell into a state of near death, their breaths hanging by a thread. You, what kind of dragon are you? The saints from the Middle Ages realm who had been killed by his claws were shocked. They did not expect that they would be killed like babies with just a single strike. The other party was only a saint from the Dragon clan in the early Middle Ages realm, but he was able to unleash such a terrifying space-time force. It was simply beyond their imagination. You can call me Wu Wudi. With a loud bang, Xiaoping reached out with his hand and captured all the saints from the Middle Ancient era. Even the saints from the Phoenix race fell into his hands. These saints from the Middle Ages were not a match for him when they were at their peak, let alone now that they had been severely injured by his claws. They could not resist his power at all. In just a breath's time, these severely injured saints fell into his hands. He performed the 6-Da sealing technique to seal the power in their bodies and directly imprison them in the world of the classic of mountains and seas. The Zhurong grass naturally fell into his hands. The Zhurong grass. This is the legendary Zhurong grass. It's unbelievable. The green bull next to him could not help but exclaim in excitement. Xiaoping also fixed his gaze on the Zhurong grass in his hands. On the surface, it looked like a 30-centimeter tall grass, but its entire body was made of red lava. It emitted a scorching heat that was at least 100 million degrees Celsius. Ordinary life forms would be instantly burned to death by the Zhurong grass if they came close. Vaguely, the Zhurong grass emitted a high and mighty divinity. It seemed like this divinity was the reason it was superior to other sage medicines. Even the most inexperienced person could sense the rich fire source energy contained in the Zhurong grass when they saw it. It was simply more powerful than all the fire sage medicines that Xiaoping had seen before. This is unbelievable. Looking at the Zhurong herb in his hand, Xiaoping could feel the golden crow of hell bloodline in his body boiling. It was as if every single golden crow of hell cell in his body was surging with the desire to devour it, as if it wanted to immediately take all the energy in this sacred herb for itself. Even with his strong willpower, he almost could not suppress this emotion. This was simply the purest instinct of a golden crow of hell. One could imagine how much Xiaoping desired the Zhurong grass. All of a sudden, a strong sense of danger came from deep within Xiaoping's body, as well as an instinctive warning from deep within his bloodline. Brat, hand over the Zhurong grass in your hands. In an instant, a huge dark hand slapped down from thousands of light years away. It seemed to freeze the spacetime within thousands of light years, producing a terrifying spacetime force that suppressed everything. A mighty force that shook spacetime was born at this moment, destroying everything. It seemed like even the saints of the Middle Ages would be easily slapped to death by this palm, unable to withstand it. Oh no, it's the ancient saint. The green bull's expression turned grave. His previous master, the Mountain River Saint, was an ancient saint. He was a powerful existence that surpassed the Middle Age saints. He had comprehended the law of creation. He was almost like a god, a powerhouse that was far beyond the imagination of the Middle Age saints. Although Xiaoping had advanced to the early Middle Age stage, he still felt a great sense of danger when he faced the ancient saint's attack. It was as if he had a premonition of death at any time. Chapter 2503. Golden Crow Wings of Hell. Suddenly, a pair of dark golden wings appeared on Xiaoping's body and wrapped around his entire body. These were the wings of the Golden Crow of Hell, and they contained strong spacetime power. Whoosh! In just an instant, the spacetime power on his body distorted the spacetime and he entered a different world. No power could lock onto his body. It was as if he had reached the realm of invulnerability. Even the dark hand couldn't catch him. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the dark hand crushed down and instantly shattered the spacetime within hundreds of light years. Explosions occurred everywhere and everything was destroyed. Just then, a huge figure stepped out from the void. It looked like a lion and there was white fog around it. It seemed like it was riding on the clouds. Tao. Xiaoping recognized it right away. It was the famous divine beast Tao. It had reached immemorial ancient realm and was a strong existence that had comprehended the creation law. Brat, you actually managed to dodge my palm. You are quite capable. The ancient Tao said, how about this, hand over the Zhurong grass and I will allow you to run for 3 seconds. If you can escape within 3 seconds you can live. Otherwise you will die. It only gave Xiaoping 3 seconds to escape. That was its biggest mercy. It had to get the Zhurong grass because Tao was a fire attribute being, similar to a phoenix. Therefore, the Zhurong grass was extremely beneficial to the Tao race. If the immemorial ancient Tao could get the Zhurong grass, it would probably be able to advance to immemorial ancient realm very quickly. It might even be able to advance to invincible realm. It definitely wouldn't give up on such a fortuitous encounter. Escape for 3 seconds? Hearing this, Xiaoping immediately laughed. No need. We still don't know who will win and who will lose. Do you really think you can beat me? Arrogant. The ancient Tao hollered. A brat who has just entered immemorial ancient realm dares to boast in front of me. Who gave you such courage? If you haven't advanced to immemorial ancient realm, you won't know how terrifying the immemorial ancient saints are. After leveling up to the immemorial ancient state and comprehending the laws of creation, my body would be filled with the aura of creation at every single moment. With just a casual punch, I would be able to change the substance of everything in the world. I can even distort your body structure, your magic power, your soul, and even the laws of space and time on your body, causing your space and time domain to completely collapse. In fact, after I completely distort your space-time laws and destroy them, I can even turn you into any kind of creature at will. It's not a problem even if I turn you into a dog. You little brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Since you want to die, this old man will fulfill your wish. Boom! As soon as it finished speaking, it immediately attacked, throwing a punch at Xiaoping. This punch simply surpassed everything. It ignored the distance between time and space. This was a punch that belonged to the creation realm. The fist was surrounded by the creation realm qi. Xiaoping could sense that if he was hit by this punch, all the substances in his body would change. For example, water could turn into earth, earth into fire, fire into gold, gold into water, and so on. In the face of the creation realm qi, any substance in the world could be changed at will. If it were a normal treasure that met with the creation realm qi, it would just be swept by and corroded into the interior of the treasure, causing the treasure to turn into a pile of scrap metal. It wouldn't be able to be of any use in the face of the ancient saint. Not only would treasures change, but even living beings would change as well. They would be able to turn into all kinds of living beings. Humans could also turn into pigs, dogs, cows, and sheep. This was the terrifying power of the ancient saint who had comprehended the laws of creation. This creation realm qi could be said to be an undying substance. It was the power of creation that was born after the laws of space and time were activated to the extreme. Amazing. Is this the power of the ancient saint? Xiaoping's eyes lit up. Right now he could truly feel how strong the ancient saint was. This was a saint who was more than 10 times stronger than the ancient saint. With the creation realm qi and the usage of the laws of creation, even the space and time domain wouldn't be able to block it. If the creation realm qi were to invade his body, all the laws of space and time on his body would be changed and destroyed. He wouldn't be a match for it. However, it wasn't that he couldn't block the creation realm qi. Boom. In an instant he took out a treasure, the Book of Karma, and cast a supreme magical power, Karma Barrier. Immediately, with Xiaoping's body as the center, he was surrounded by a transparent Karma Barrier. This was a defensive magical power that far surpassed the world barrier. Vaguely, the transparent wall contained the laws of karma that intertwined with each other. It contained the power of the 6 paths, reincarnation, and other unimaginable laws. Bang bang bang. At this moment, the ancient Swanese fist blasted over and hit the karma barrier hard. What? Immediately the ancient Swanese pupils shrank. It sensed that its invincible punch had been forcefully blocked. It was as if there was an impassable barrier in front of it. Even with its creation realm qi, it couldn't corrode this strange barrier. It was as if this barrier had reached the realm of impenetrable. Any power that came into contact with it would turn invisible. What kind of treasure is this? It can actually block my laws of creation? The primordial Swanee was taken aback. It had seen many sacred artifacts before. It had even seen peerless sacred artifacts before. However, it had never seen such a strange and powerful magic treasure. It seemed that this strange book had given birth to a higher level of power. It seemed to contain the unfathomable karma great Tao and recorded countless laws of information. From it could feel chaos. It was eternal, ancient, and unfathomable. In front of this book, it was as small as an ant. This has nothing to do with you. Die. Xiaoping wasn't interested in talking to the ancient swan and I. Ignorant junior. How dare a mere saint from the Middle Ages act so arrogantly in front of the ancient swan and I? This kind of treasure isn't something a junior like you can have. After I kill you, this treasure will be mine. The ancient Swanee's eyes were filled with greed. Who's the idiot here? Swan and I. Xiaoping's eyes flashed with a cold light and he threw a punch. Supreme Theurgy, Sun God Fist. At this moment, when he had advanced to the Middle Ages saint level, the Sun God Fist had also undergone an earth-shattering change. It had undergone a huge transformation. It had also integrated the infernal Golden Crow's flame power, making this theurgy extremely powerful. Dong. When this punch was thrown, it was as if the Vairocana Buddha had descended. It emitted endless golden light, as if a blazing sun had been born, burning through the ages and destroying everything. This punch seemed to encompass the entire universe and penetrate through the past and present. The laws of time and space intertwined in the depths of the fist, and a terrifying power of destruction erupted from the depths of the fist. Chapter 2504. What? In an instant the ancient Tao's hair stood on end. Even though it had underestimated Xiaoping, it still did not dare to underestimate this destructive punch. Damn it, where did this kid come from? The power of his mystical fire is earth-shattering, and it seems to be filled with the power to burn the void and destroy all matter. Even my creation law can't change its attribute? The ancient Tao was shocked. To be honest, after becoming an ancient sage and mastering the creation law, its power could simply crush all sages below the Middle Ages. These sages were like ants to it. No matter what kind of attack the enemy unleashed, it could instantly change the enemy's magic power, divine sense, rule, and other attributes, turning the enemy's power into nothingness. It was as if dozens of nuclear bombs were bombarding it. With a single thought, it could change the molecular arrangement of the nuclear bombs, causing them to become empty and unable to even explode. But even so, the creation chi was not omnipotent. There were many special minerals in the universe such as sound stone, soul stone, life stone, divine stone, and so on. These substances contained unique arrangements and the power of law, which even the creation law could not change. There were also some tyrannical sages with extremely strong power of law, forming an extremely sturdy spacetime domain that even the creation law could not easily shake. The infernal golden crow's flames were such a unique and powerful force. When the flames burned, there was nothing it could not burn. Even when the creation chi seeped in, it was quickly evaporated. One could imagine how shocked the ancient Tao was. Its creation law could not affect this kid, and it could not even get close to him. This was simply unbelievable. Dong. Before the ancient swan and I could figure out what was going on, the punch had already landed on its body. A terrifying destructive flame energy erupted from the depths of its body. It was as if a sun had exploded at this moment, giving birth to a terrifying destructive power. In an instant, it suddenly felt an aura of death. If it allowed the power of fire to invade its body, it was afraid that its soul would be instantly burned to ashes. Tao's magical power, mist void. At this critical moment of life and death, the ancient Swanee suddenly displayed the Swanee clan's innate magic. Its body exploded in an instant, turning into a cloud of white mist. It was formless and formless, gathering and dispersing without a trace. Crash! In the next second, it directly got rid of the attack of the Yang God Fist, and its whole body merged into the void. It seemed that every wisp of fog was its body and it was everywhere. Dong. A sun exploded at this moment, instantly producing a temperature of several billion degrees Celsius. Most of the matter within a radius of several light years was completely vaporized by the terrifying temperature. In the face of such an explosion, even the body of an ancient sage would be blown to death. At the same time, balls of dark golden flames exploded, seemingly forming small suns that burned in all directions, turning the void into a boundless sea of fire. Most life forms would not be able to survive under such a sea of fire. However, this ancient Swanee still managed to survive. It turned into wisps of mist and blended into the void, as if hiding in the depths of a dimension. No power could harm its body. This is Swanee's god art? Xia Ping raised his eyebrows. He did not expect this ancient Swanee to get rid of his attack so easily. At this moment he suddenly thought of the Swanee's natural magical power, mist transformation. To be honest, this bloodline magic was famous even in the universe. Once the Swanee's body turned into mist, it would be in a relatively invincible state, and no attack would be able to harm its body. It was as if it was in the realm of being invulnerable and untouchable. Of course, once this magic was used, it would also be unable to harm the enemy. Even so, it was difficult for ordinary people to kill a Swanee. After all, once the Swanee used this magic, it could easily escape and no race would be able to catch up. Brat, very good. You're really capable. You actually forced me to use Swanee's mist transformation magic. As a Middle Ancient Realm sage, you should be proud. This ancient Swanee was furious, and its voice came from all directions. It seemed that every wisp of mist in the depths of the void was its body, but every wisp of mist was just its clone. It was now extremely angry. To be honest, it thought that it would be a piece of cake to kill this brat. Killing someone from the Middle Ancient era was an easy task. This was simply a free advantage. But who would have thought that this brat had unlimited god arts, numerous magic treasures, and tyrannical combat strength? He actually forced it to use Swanee's god art. One could imagine how angry it was right now. Just you wait, I'll immediately summon my comrades to kill you. You definitely won't be able to leave the eternal light boundary alive. This ancient Swanee was enraged, and it planned to summon its comrades. It knew that it could not kill this brat who had many tricks up his sleeves. However, if it summoned enough comrades or even an immemorial sage from the Swanee race, this brat would not be able to escape even if he had wings. This brat would not be able to escape even if he had wings. He would definitely die. Although it was difficult for it to swallow a treasure like the Zhurong grass, if it did not do this, it would not be able to stop this brat. If it could not kill this brat, it would not be able to obtain anything when the time came. In that case, it would share a portion of the benefits and summon its comrades from the Swanee race. This way it would still be able to obtain some benefits. Summon comrades? There's no need. You won't have such a chance. With a whoosh, Xia Ping took out another hell treasure, the reincarnation brush. His face was expressionless as he instilled the powerful power of space and time into the depths of the brush. No chance? Brat, do you know what you're saying? Do you think you can kill this old man with your feeble strength? Under the Swanee race's mistransformation, let alone you, even an immemorial sage might not be able to kill this old man. Do you understand? The ancient Swanee laughed heartily as if it had heard the funniest joke in the world. But in the next second, its laughter came to an abrupt halt. This was because it instantly sensed that the dark golden brush had lifted and was pointing at its soul from afar. It was clearly in a state of mist, fused with the void and impervious to all techniques. However, at this moment, it felt a mysterious and tyrannical force lock onto its soul. It was as if an invisible karmic thread was connected from one end to the other. It could not escape or struggle free. Damn it, what kind of treasure is this? The ancient Swanee's hair stood on end. It was more frightened than ever before. It was clearly just a brush, but it was more ferocious and terrifying than any treasure it had ever seen. It was as if the tip of the brush contained a terrifying sharpness that could easily tear apart the universe. It was as if the brush had grasped karma, outlined reincarnation, and determined life and death. Chapter 2505. Run. The ancient Tao was trembling. Even though it was confident in its bloodline magic, its instincts as an ancient sage still warned it. It immediately performed its magic and tried to escape thousands of light years away. But it was too late. Boom. In an instant, the reincarnation brush touched the ancient Tao's soul gently. A terrifying ray of light followed the karma line and bombarded the ancient Tao's soul. The so-called mist power did not have any effect. Ah! The ancient Tao let out a shrill scream. It felt as if it had been hit by the wrath of heaven. Its entire soul was being torn apart by this incredible power. It felt as if it was being judged by the god of the underworld. No matter where it hid, it could not escape. How is this possible? I'm an ancient sage of the Tao race. How can I be killed by a puny sage from the Middle Ages? I can't accept this. I can't accept this. The ancient Tao roared. It was an ancient sage who had comprehended the law of creation. It had even used the natural power of the Tao race, Mist Void. Even a sage from the Middle Ages might not be able to kill it. But against a mere sage from the Middle Ages, it could not even escape. It had thought that it would be a great opportunity to obtain the treasure. Who would have thought that this would be the path to death? Not only did it not obtain the treasure, but it was also killed by the enemy. Crack. In the next second, the ancient Tao's soul was crushed and turned into ashes. Its gigantic body also fell from the depths of the void. Countless mists gathered together, once again condensing into the corpse of an ancient Swanee. Its body still emitted an unparalleled aura, suppressing the void. Its eyes were wide open, showing its unwillingness and shock. It had died with grievances. Unfortunately, this huge corpse was like an empty shell. It no longer had any soul power. The reincarnation brush is getting more and more powerful. Xia Ping was very satisfied with the reincarnation brush. As he grew stronger, the power that the reincarnation brush could exert became more and more terrifying. It could even kill an ancient sage from a distance. In particular, the karma power of the reincarnation brush could ignore any power of law. It could directly kill the enemy along the karma line. This power was boundlessly terrifying. However, using such a terrifying karmic attack did not come without a price. The power of this attack would consume almost a third of his magic power. He estimated that he wouldn't be able to unleash many attacks in a short period of time. He could only use this as a trump card. Even so, it was enough to make the ancient sages fear him. I've struck gold this time. Xia Ping made a grabbing motion and immediately found a storage ring on the primordial Swanee's body. The storage ring contained a large amount of the primordial Swanee's treasures and the various gains it had obtained in the cosmic light dimension. With just a sweep of his divine sense, he discovered that the storage ring contained 5 or 6 stalks of sacred medicine. Each stalk of sacred medicine was priceless. Although they couldn't compare to a natural treasure like the Zhurong grass, they were still rare treasures in the universe. For example, the stone spider, orchid, fig, rootless vine, thyme, etc. All of them were priceless sacred medicines. We're rich, we're really rich. When the green ox sensed these holy medicines, it was about to drool. As long as it was given enough time, it could use the seeds of these holy medicines to cultivate even more precious holy medicines. To be honest, even when its old master, the mountain river saint, was still alive, he couldn't find so many holy medicines. After all, holy medicines weren't something that could be found everywhere. It required a certain degree of opportunity and luck. Yes, and ores. Other than that, Xiaoping also found many precious ores on the primordial Swanee's body. They seemed to be rare treasures in the universe, and even those that the ancient sages took a fancy to could not be obtained. After all, the ancient sages were beings that had grasped the laws of creation. Whatever they wanted, they could easily fabricate material and create it out of thin air. To mortals, there was actually no difference between the ancient sages and gods. Thus, those that the ancient sages took a fancy to were all treasures that could not be created by the laws of creation. They were definitely rare treasures in the universe, containing unique laws of heaven and earth as well as the power of source of the universe. For example, the 5 elements jade. This was a precious jade that contained the power of the 5 elements. It was indestructible and was a top-grade material for forging sacred tools. It could forge powerful treasures that contained the power of the 5 elements. The dazzling crystal was a light yellow crystal that emitted a faint purple glow, causing one to feel dizzy. It was extremely hard, and many sages used it to forge spaceships that could withstand the destruction of spatial storms. There were also sages who used it to forge defensive treasures, forging armors, helmets, and other treasures that could block the attacks of enemies and minimize the damage suffered by oneself to the greatest extent. Jade rubber was an item that was produced once every 100 million years by the jade oak tree, a spiritual wood of heaven and earth. It possessed unparalleled flexibility and was enough to block the majority of physical attacks. It had a wide range of uses. If it covered the surface of a spaceship, it could greatly weaken the attacking power of enemies. The Mirage Stone was a unique cosmic gem that could create a mirage. Some sages used these gems to set up a mirage formation to cover their tracks and create an illusory barrier. Good stuff. Xiaoping rubbed his chin. These unique cosmic ores could be completely absorbed by the golden slime. According to the characteristics of Xiao Jin's body, after absorbing these ores, it would be able to possess the abilities of these ores. It could even use its natural ability to continuously produce the same kind of ores. It could be said that if some of the ores that were on the verge of extinction were devoured by Xiao Jin, it could completely produce a large number of the same kind of cosmic ores again. This was equivalent to turning the golden slime into an endless vein of ore. Moreover, these cosmic ores could also speed up Xiao Jin's evolution. Let the world tree devour this ancient Swanee's corpse. Xiaoping rubbed his chin and moved his thoughts. He immediately mobilized the power of the world tree. Immediately, the ancient Swanee's corpse was grabbed by the branches of the world tree and frantically devoured the energy and creation chi of the ancient sage's corpse. 7 days. Xiaoping sensed that it would take at least 7 days for the world tree to completely devour the energy of the ancient Swanee's corpse. Only then would it be able to condense a creation fruit. He was very much looking forward to it. He did not know what it would feel like to devour a creation fruit. Perhaps he could take the opportunity to comprehend a trace of the mysteries of the laws of creation. And after obtaining the corpse of the ancient sage, the world tree also seemed to have obtained great benefits. After devouring traces of creation chi, its body also seemed to have undergone a mysterious change. Let's go. Xiaoping's figure flashed and immediately left the place. After all, this was an ancient Swanee's corpse. If the Swanee race knew about this, who knew what they would do? It was better for him to leave this dangerous place as soon as possible. Chapter 2506. Several hours later. Xiaoping left the scene of the incident and came to a desolate planet in the distance, temporarily hiding there. He took out the Zhurong grass from his body. Immediately, the grass emitted dense fire origin energy, as if it contained the energy of a superstar. It released astonishing heat everywhere. If he didn't have the golden crow of hell physique, anyone else would probably have been burned to ashes by the heat emitted by the Zhurong grass. This was like a mortal approaching the sun. It would only bring about one's own destruction and be reduced to ashes. The energy contained within the Zhurong grass was actually comparable to that of a real star, if not surpassing it. Good stuff. Every golden crow of hell cell in Xiaoping's body was trembling. Vaguely, there seemed to be a divine bird shrieking. With his powerful divine sense, he could naturally sense that the Zhurong grass contained dense fire origin energy. There was even a trace of divine nomological power within it. It was unfathomable. If he consumed the Zhurong grass, he might even be able to comprehend a trace of divine power. It could greatly increase his cultivation. It was no wonder that even the ancient saints were tempted. Devour. Without saying anything, Xiaoping immediately swallowed the Zhurong grass. He wasn't a miser. He would definitely eat such a top-grade treasure if he could. Moreover, this kind of Zhurong grass was actually unique. It could only be cultivated with the blood of the fire god Zhurong. Therefore this kind of Zhurong grass had long been extinct. Perhaps there was only one in the entire universe. Even with the Black Bull's knowledge, it was impossible to cultivate the Zhurong grass. It was even impossible to breed it. Rumble in an instant, the Zhurong grass entered Xiaoping's dantian and was immediately burned by the solar furnace in his stomach. The impurities were quickly refined, leaving behind only the purest energy. Immediately the Zhurong grass melted in his body. It seemed to turn into drops of solidified lava. It was like the blood of the fire god Zhurong. Vaguely the scarlet lava seemed to contain divinity. It was unfathomable. At the same time, a huge amount of fire origin energy erupted at this moment. The scarlet lava flowed along his limbs and bones. Countless blood vessels fused into his blood and flowed everywhere in his body. This? Xiaoping's eyes flashed with a frightening light. After devouring the Zhurong grass, he felt that the golden crow of hell bloodline in his body seemed to be growing explosively. 100 million, 200 million, 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion golden crow cells were awakening at a crazy rate. He sensed that a fire god was awakening and being born in the depths of his body. An unimaginable divine power was eroding every corner of his body and every drop of blood. At this moment, his body was instantly engulfed in flames, and wisps of astonishing flames were emitted from his 108,000 pores. It was as if the area within a radius of several thousand light-years had turned into a sea of flames. Fortunately, Xiaoping was in the world of the classic of mountains and seas. Otherwise, just this phenomenon alone would be enough to attract the attention of countless living beings, and they would quickly come looking for trouble. This is bloodline erosion? Xiaoping narrowed his eyes. He discovered that this Zhurong grass indeed contained the blood of the fire god Zhurong. Even though the amount was small, it was indeed the blood of a deity. It was extremely great, tyrannical, tenacious and strange. This kind of blood contained unimaginable erosive properties. If an ordinary person consumed it, they would immediately be transformed into a descendant of Zhurong's bloodline. They would inherit Zhurong's flame power and become a natural Zhurong body. To an ordinary person this was naturally a great opportunity. However, this kind of power was a huge threat to Xiaoping, who had the Golden Crow of Hell's bloodline. This was because the Golden Crow of Hell was itself a supreme demon god of hell. It was the ruler of all demon gods. How could it allow this fire god Zhurong to invade its territory and even want to erode its bloodline? This was simply a violation of the dignity of a demon god. It was intolerable and it would not rest until it was dead. At this moment, the Golden Crow of Hell in Xiaoping's body seemed to have awakened at this moment. It let out an earth-shattering roar, and a Golden Crow of Hell was slowly born, exuding a fierce aura. With a snap, this Golden Crow of Hell was incomparably tyrannical. As soon as it appeared, it instantly swallowed the bloodline power of the fire god Zhurong, swallowing its entire body. Feeling such power, the fire god Zhurong seemed to let out a shrill scream, as if it was very unwilling to give up. However, it could not resist the extremely ferocious Golden Crow of Hell. After all, when the Golden Crow of Hell was at its peak, it was also an existence that specialized in swallowing demon gods. Gods were nothing to it. It had swallowed a lot of demon gods at its peak, let alone a trace of its bloodline. Although the fire god Zhurong was powerful, it could not resist. No matter how unwilling the bloodline of the fire god Zhurong was, it could only quietly disappear. It also knew that it was no longer the life of its era. It had long surpassed its imagination. At the same time, the flames of the Golden Crow of Hell on its body immediately swallowed the bloodline of the fire god Zhurong. All the divinity and impurities were burned away, leaving only the most basic flame power. Another day passed. Xiaoping finally swallowed the flame power of the fire god Zhurong grass and integrated it into his body. As a result, the number of Golden Crow of Hell cells in his body increased by 200 billion. So far, he had awakened 500 billion Golden Crow of Hell cells in his body. As a result, more than half of the bones in his body had been refined into godly bones. Dense, dark golden runes appeared on them, emitting an ancient, chaotic aura. Moreover, there was still a part of the Zhurong grass's energy that had not been completely swallowed. It was hidden in the deepest part of his cells, waiting for him to slowly digest and absorb it. If he waited for the Zhurong grass's energy to be completely swallowed, the number of Golden Crow of Hell cells that he could awaken would definitely skyrocket. Of course, it was not only the Golden Crow of Hell bloodline in his body that had improved. At the same time, thanks to the enormous energy of the Zhurong grass, his magic power had also improved tremendously. In just a day, his magic power had advanced to the peak of the early ancient middle stage. He was only one step away from advancing to the middle ancient middle stage. If other saints from the middle ancient middle stage saw this, they would definitely be shocked to death. After all, after advancing to the middle ancient middle stage, the time needed to accumulate magic power was measured in tens of thousands of years. Sometimes, it was only natural for one to advance from the early ancient middle stage to the middle ancient middle stage after cultivating for hundreds of millions of years. However, because of the Zhurong grass, he had saved a lot of effort and time in condensing magic power, increasing his efficiency. Chapter 2507. At this moment, in the world of the classic of mountains and seas. Xia Ping sat cross-legged on the ground and cultivated in seclusion. After devouring the Zhurong grass, he obtained a trace of divinity within it, which greatly increased his comprehension ability. It seemed to have allowed him to enter a state of epiphany and comprehend the laws of the universe. In fact, the most precious thing within the Zhurong grass was not the pure flame source energy, but the trace of divinity left behind by the fire god Zhurong. This was a great supplement for sages. Even a trace of divinity was enough to bring great benefits to sages. In an instant, sages' comprehension ability reached an extraordinary level, and it became easier to comprehend the laws of the universe. This feeling? Xia Ping instantly discovered that the various martial arts and magics he had learned in the past, apart from the infernal Golden Crow bloodline magics, were actually mostly outdated and could not keep up with his current combat power. Of course, he could also learn new martial arts magics from the system, but at his level, no matter how powerful the magics were, they were not as good as the martial arts magics that were suitable for him. And the martial arts magics that were most suitable for him were naturally not learned from other places, but created by himself. Only he could truly understand himself. In fact, after so many years he had learned countless martial arts magics and comprehended the laws of the universe, which gave Xia Ping an extremely deep martial arts accumulation. Creating a martial Dao mystic art was no longer a difficult task for Xia Ping. This feeling, so that's it. In an instant, Xia Ping closed his eyes, and countless martial arts magics intertwined in the depths of his sea of consciousness. They immediately collided, and dazzling sparks of wisdom erupted. Many of the magics he had learned, such as the Four-Season Sword Technique, the Great Yin-Yang Tablet Smashing Hand, the Black Vortex Rippling Fist, the Clapless Palm and other ultimate techniques, were all performed in the depths of his sea of consciousness and merged together. Vaguely, the power of the four seasons, the power of yin and yang, the power of the whirlpool, and the power of the ripples seemed to converge and collide at this moment. Dong. In an instant, Xia Ping stood up from the ground. Suddenly, the sky and earth shook, and the surrounding space-time trembled, triggering the laws of the universe in all directions. He blasted out a punch. Boom. A space-time power containing the four seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter exploded out, forming a terrifying vortex. It turned into a balance of yin and yang, producing a terrifying strangling power. The void in front of Lin Fan was instantly blasted apart by the punch, and a huge black hole appeared. It was as though the punch had completely shattered the void in front of Lin Fan, producing an unparalleled destructive power. Not bad. This new martial art shall be called Alternation of Seasons. Xia Ping clenched his fists and opened his eyes, revealing a terrifying radiance. Through the Four-Season Sword Technique, Great Yin-Yang Tablet Smashing Hand, Black Vortex Rippling Fist, Clapless Palm, and other ultimate martial arts techniques, as well as his own understanding of the laws of space and time, he created a brand new divine power, Four Seasons Alternation. This martial arts mystic art contained the power of time and space of the four seasons. The power of time and space of spring, summer, autumn, and winter cycled continuously, forming a huge millstone of the 8 trigrams and yin and yang, brewing the power of time and space strangulation. Once the enemy was hit by this punch, they would instantly be entangled by the terrifying space-time power and be ground into powder. Moreover, this punch contained an extremely powerful vortex power that would instantly lock onto the enemy's soul and aura, making it impossible for them to escape or evade. They would have no choice but to take the punch head-on. If a mortal were to be hit by this punch, their lifespan would instantly be depleted and reduced to nothingness. Even a saint would not be able to withstand it, and their soul would be ground into powder by the power of time and space. Holy shit, this monster. In the distance, the invisible dragon Theodore saw this scene as well, and he was completely dumbfounded. Even though he had once reached the invincible realm, he could still see the power of this martial art mystic art. The power of time and space of spring, summer, autumn, winter, and so on converged together and rotated through the millstone of the 8 trigrams of yin and yang, constantly alternating and grinding each other as though they were going through a cycle of reincarnation. This was clearly a power that could only be unleashed by someone who had comprehended the laws of time and space to an extremely high level. It was as though the laws of time and space were intertwined to produce a terrifying destructive power. Theodore felt that even an ancient saint would be severely injured if he were hit by this punch. To be honest, if he were still an ancient saint, he would have to retreat in the face of this punch, this martial art mystic art. Damn it, this is a killing talent, a boorish fellow who only knows how to fight. The invisible dragon Theodore was extremely depressed. If he were someone from the same era as this kid, he would probably be beaten up so badly that he would have to flee like a rat every day, unable to even lift his head. Moreover, his talent lay in escaping, not fighting. If he had such a talent for fighting back then, he might have died in the war of the primordial era. As expected of Master. The Green Bull, the spirit of the classic of mountains and seas, naturally saw this scene and was immediately filled with admiration. He naturally knew that his master had walked on the path of creating his own mystic art at this point. In truth, this was a path that every saint had to take. Although the martial art mystic art that one learned was extremely powerful, it was ultimately someone else's martial art mystic art. It was a path that others had comprehended, and it was suitable for others. Of course, when one was young, they had to walk the path of their predecessors and move forward step by step, absorbing the nutrients of their predecessors. After all, young people at this age knew nothing and had no foundation. As the saying went, a towering building was built from the ground. Without a solid foundation, how could a towering building be built? However, after growing up and accumulating a huge amount of knowledge, one could graduate. At that time, one would naturally have their own path to walk, and they might even carve out a path that belonged to them. Xia Ping's creation of the alternation of seasons martial art mystic art was clearly the first step on his own path. This seems to be fine. Xia Ping's inspiration had yet to end. After creating the alternation of seasons martial art mystic art, his inspiration struck again. He suddenly thought of the Book of Karma and the Samsara brush that he often used. These two treasures, which were almost at the level of divine weapons, were practically invincible, capable of slaying gods and demons alike. The reason why these two treasures were so powerful and could ignore everything was because they contained the powerful laws of karma within them. This was a power that was practically above all laws, and it was the source of the laws of the universe. Originally, the laws of karma were extremely difficult to comprehend. Even invincible saints could not comprehend them or even touch them. This was a type of power that belonged to the laws of destiny. However, Xia Ping was different. After using the Book of Karma and the Samsara brush so many times, he was constantly comprehending the laws of karma. Every time he used them, the information of the laws of karma would flow in the depths of his sea of consciousness. This was like cheating on an exam, where the answers would appear on one's test paper. Chapter 2508. Rumble. In an instant, Xia Ping made his move again. His divine sense spread out, permeating the void. He seemed to vaguely sense threads of karma that connected everything in the world from his body. There was a cause and effect. As long as there was contact with him, there would definitely be a result and a connection. Such a connection was almost impossible to break. This was the power of the law of karma, which connected everything in the world. In an instant he attacked with a finger. The raging mana within his body gushed out and shot out along one of the karma threads, attacking through the air. Boom. A huge boulder in front of him instantly turned into dust, as if it had been completely wiped out by a finger. It was as if it had never existed in the first place. What the hell is this? In the distance, invisible dragon Theodore's hair stood on end, and his whole body was trembling. As a phantom dragon, he actually felt genuine fear from the finger just now. Although the power of the finger didn't seem to be very strong, and it could only crush a rock, in fact, only a giant dragon like it who had reached the invincible realm knew how terrifying it was. That finger was simply unstoppable. From cause to effect, as long as one used it, one would definitely be hit. There was no way to escape even if one hid to the ends of the world. Moreover, most of the power, even saint items could not withstand it. It directly penetrated into one's essence and attacked one's soul. If a phantom dragon like him was hit by that finger, it would probably be erased from the world. Damn it, what kind of monster is this guy? What kind of magic did he create? Invisible dragon Theodore's face turned green. If he had only been shocked by the power that Xia Ping had created and was unstoppable before, now he only felt fear from the bottom of his heart. That finger was a magic that contained a taboo, far beyond the imagination of a saint. Master's strength is truly unfathomable. Unlike Theodore, the green ox was extremely excited. The stronger its master was, the brighter its future would be. This was undeniable, as the two were in a symbiotic relationship. Not a bad martial mystique. This finger mystique shall be called Indra finger. Xiaoping rubbed his chin, feeling very happy. This was a finger magic that he had created by combining the law of karma. While it was not particularly powerful at the moment, its potential was endless. It was not hard to imagine that as he continued to grow stronger, the power of the Indra finger would also become boundlessly terrifying. However, after learning the alternation of 4 seasons and Indra finger, the divinity of the Zhurong grass seemed to have been exhausted, and he no longer had the inspiration to create a new divine ability. But even so, these 2 new divine abilities were enough for him to use. A few more days passed. Xiaoping had been cultivating in the world of the classic of mountains and seas, silently tempering his body and increasing his magic power. At the same time, he was also mastering the 2 new martial arts mystiques he had learned, Indra finger and alternation of seasons. After this period of time, he could be considered to have mastered these 2 divine abilities. Because they were created by him, these 2 supernatural powers were innately compatible with the power in his body. It was as if he had learned them since he was young and they had become instinctive. He had also cultivated these 2 divine abilities to an extremely high level, greatly increasing his combat power. Xiaoping. At this time, Corinne jumped out and came forward to report the news. Something big has happened. Someone has suddenly discovered a huge relic in the Eternal Light Realm. Many sages have already gone to that place. Corinne jumped out excitedly and reported the news to Xiaoping. While Xiaoping was cultivating, Corinne drove the Invisible Palace to stroll around the Eternal Light Realm. The Invisible Palace's concealment ability was too strong. As long as Corinne didn't want to, even an invincible saint wouldn't be able to discover it. Therefore, it could simply come and go freely in the Eternal Light Realm, plundering treasures everywhere. At the same time, it could also obtain a lot of important information. Could be considered as a super spy. Huge relic? What kind of relic is it? Xiaoping's heart moved. Don't look at how he had been cultivating these days. In fact, he had also been paying attention to the news of the Eternal Light Realm. If any treasures appeared, he would immediately rush over. However, the Eternal Light Realm was really too big. Countless planets had appeared, and because it had experienced the Great Apocalypse, it had suffered heavy losses. Most of the planets had been destroyed and no treasures had been left behind. Therefore, most of the divine beasts that entered the Eternal Light Realm came up empty-handed and could only desperately search for treasures. I don't know what kind of relic it is. I only know that it is on a super planet. It seems that the owner of this place has set up countless restrictive array formations. These restrictive array formations are extremely tyrannical, and even ancient sages cannot enter. Corinne said excitedly, now that the news has spread, many sages are rushing over from all directions, trying to break the restrictive array formations of the relic. There's such a thing? Xiaoping's heart stirred. Generally speaking, after experiencing the Great Apocalypse, almost the entire infrastructure of the Eternal Light Realm had been destroyed, and all the restrictive array formations had turned invisible. However, that relic actually still had restrictive array formations. It had survived from the beginning of the primal chaos to the present day. One could imagine how terrifying that place was in its heyday. Therefore, during the heyday of the Eternal Light Realm, that relic was definitely one of the most important cores. Could it be that the origin star has been found? Xiaoping asked. No, it's not the origin star. If the origin star had been found, I'm afraid that the leisurely invincible sages in the outside world would have been alarmed and come in to snatch the treasures. Corinne said, but even so, that place also hides quite important treasures. In fact, some sages have also spread the news that there is a primordial spiritual treasure there. Primordial spiritual treasure? Hearing this, Xiaoping was shocked. His eyes revealed a frightening light, and he was extremely excited. Primordial spiritual treasures were magic treasures naturally born in the universe. They contained the complete laws of the universe. Every primordial spiritual treasure was a unique existence, and even gods might not be able to possess one. And he had 2 primordial spiritual treasures on him. One was the formless mask and the other was the wish compass. Both of these primordial spiritual treasures had brought him great benefits. He didn't know how many times he had been saved by these 2 primordial spiritual treasures. If not for these 2 primordial spiritual treasures, who knew how many dangers he would have encountered? Now, there was actually a primordial spiritual treasure hidden in a place. How could this be? Let's go and take a look. How could Xiaoping sit still? Even though he knew that the relic was definitely hiding a lot of dangers, and that there might even be experts at the level of primordial sages and ancient sages competing for it, but if there was a chance he would never give it up. Chapter 2509. A day later. Xiaoping followed Corinne's directions and quickly arrived at the relic. He saw a gigantic planet that was as huge as a star in front of him. Any life would seem insignificant in front of this planet. However, this planet also seemed to have suffered serious destruction. There were signs of destruction everywhere, and the flames of war were everywhere, as if there were countless scars of laws in the depths of the planet. Clearly, this place had been severely destroyed during the great shattering of the universe. Even so, this planet had remained in a complete state. Many sages had already arrived near this planet. Among them, the primordial sages were the strongest as they were the closest to this planet, followed by the primordial sages. Next were the middle ancient sages and near ancient sages. Xiaoping did not attract much attention when he approached this place. After all, he was only an early middle ancient sage. He was only in the third line among so many sages and could not even get close to this planet. However, this was good as well. At least he would not attract attention and would have a chance to fish in troubled waters. Xiaoping stared at the mysterious planet in front of him. He immediately discovered that the entire planet was surrounded by hundreds of powerful restriction formations. They intertwined with each other and seemed to form an absolute space-time domain that was integrated into one. Such a restriction formation was many times more powerful than the invincible dragon Theodore's restriction formation. The restriction formations were like the laws of the great Tao that enveloped the entire planet. If it was at its peak, it would probably be able to stop even the gods. All of the sages could feel a palpitating aura coming from this planet. Even after countless years of corrosion and the destruction of the great destruction of the universe, the planet's restriction formation was still extremely powerful. However, it still had an extremely tyrannical defensive power. Even the primordial sages couldn't easily break in, and they were all isolated from the planet. Otherwise, these sages would have already broken in. They would not have waited until now. What's going on? Didn't they say that this planet is a huge relic that hides a lot of treasures? There are even innate spiritual treasures. Why didn't any sages enter? An ancient sage from the Qilin clan asked curiously. How stupid. Didn't you see the restriction formation on this planet? That's no ordinary restriction, it's a divine restriction. Every divine restriction contains the power of the origin of the laws of the universe. It's so powerful that even an invincible saint wouldn't dare to act recklessly. If the power of the divine restriction is triggered, no matter how many lives you have, it won't be enough. An ancient saint sneered. But haven't the restrictive formations here been mostly destroyed? Why do we need to worry about the power of the divine restriction? The middle-aged saint was puzzled. What a joke. Even if it's just a divine restriction with only 10% of its power left, it's still not something an ordinary saint can provoke. It's a terrifying power that even the primordial saints have to be extremely careful of. One of the ancient saints said in a deep voice, "It is said that when exploring the forbidden darkness, one would encounter the power of the divine restriction from time to time. Many ancient saints were careless and touched this power, immediately turning into ashes. They couldn't even escape. It indicated that they could not be careless in this matter or else they would die." Divine prohibition? Upon hearing this, Xiaoping rubbed his chin. It was no wonder that he felt that the restrictive array formations on this planet were very unusual. They were like imprints of the great path that covered every corner of the void. In fact, these restrictive formations that had been destroyed even had the ability to repair themselves. Of course, because the divine restriction had been so severely damaged, the speed of repair was also extremely slow. Even so, this made the planet's defensive array formation extremely powerful. Even primordial saints could not easily enter and could only watch from the outside. But didn't they say that there might be connate spiritual treasures on this planet? What kind of connate spiritual treasure is it? A saint asked curiously. Previously, a saint who was proficient in eye techniques paid a huge price to pass through the defense of the divine restriction and see a little of what's going on inside the planet. He did indeed find a connate spiritual treasure called the Creation Pool. An ancient saint said, "Connate spiritual treasure creation pool? What's its use?" Many saints pricked up their ears and became increasingly curious. Xiaoping was the same. Of course it's useful and it's very useful. In fact, this was not a secret. Moreover, with so many saints gathered here, there was no way to keep it a secret. The ancient saint continued, "This connate spiritual treasure creation pool can endlessly devour the universe's origin energy and produce wisps of creation liquid and creation chi. If ordinary people were to be corroded by the creation chi day and night, they would soon be transformed into extremely talented cultivation geniuses. It would even be greatly beneficial for purifying the bloodlines of various divine beasts. Even for saints, the creation chi is extremely beneficial. If one is constantly being nurtured by the creation chi, it would be even easier for them to understand the laws of the universe and improve their understanding of the laws. Moreover, for saints in the Middle Ages, the creation chi contains a huge amount of information about the laws of creation. If they were to devour some of the creation chi, they might be able to understand the laws of creation faster and become an ancient saint." It paused for a moment before continuing, "It can be said that this connate spiritual treasure creation pool is a supportive treasure. It's a powerful magic treasure that specializes in nurturing future generations. If a certain force has this connate spiritual treasure creation pool, they would be able to continuously produce genius-level life forms and produce supreme powerhouses at any time. In fact, some sages have guessed that this place might be a secret cultivation ground in the eternal light realm, an important place specially used to train powerful warriors for the gods." I see. The sages were enlightened. They immediately understood why so many primordial saints were gathered here. They all yearned to get their hands on this connate magic treasure. This was because any race that obtained this connate magic treasure would probably bring great benefits to their race. This was especially true for races that were few in number. If they could be nurtured by the creation moment, their entire race would become geniuses. The power of such a race would be unimaginable. Moreover, as time passed, it would be of even greater help to their race. If they obtained this connate magic treasure, their race's power would probably increase by more than a few times. Therefore, no saint would back down in the face of such a connate magic treasure. Even if they couldn't get it, they would definitely not let other races get it. Otherwise, it would be a disaster for their own race in the future. One could imagine how much these sages valued this connate magic treasure. Even if they had to fight to the death, they had to get their hands on it. Chapter 25:10. Master, you must obtain this connate magic treasure, the creation pool. Hearing that, the green ox was extremely excited. It roared in Xiaoping's Sea of Consciousness, "As long as the classic of mountains and seas possesses this connate magic treasure, the pool of creation, it'll always be filled with tremendous creation chi. Any life in the world of the classic of mountains and seas will be bathed in the creation chi, and their evolution speed will be unbelievably fast. This will also promote the evolution of the world of the classic of mountains and seas. Don't think that the classic of mountains and seas is just a peerless divine artifact. If I obtain this connate magic treasure, the creation pool, I might have a chance of evolving into a divine artifact." He was extremely excited. A divine artifact. This was the ultimate dream of countless magic treasures, including peerless divine artifacts. It was a magic treasure that surpassed all other magic treasures and seemed to have reached the realm of gods. It was said that magic treasures that reached this realm could transform their artifact spirits into real life. They could even survive without the magic treasure itself. However, so far, there had not been a single magic treasure that had transformed from a peerless divine artifact to a divine artifact. As for the divine artifacts of the various peak races, they were actually obtained from some ruins after the destruction of the previous universe. They were not divine artifacts born in this era. Of course, I definitely want to get the chance. Xiaoping rubbed his chin and thought about the feasibility of this matter. Of course, he knew the benefits of obtaining this connate magic treasure. The problem was that there were so many sages eyeing it, and the planet was protected by divine restrictions. It would be extremely difficult to take away the connate magic treasure, the creation pool, in front of everyone. However, there was a certain degree of feasibility to this plan. It required long-term planning and careful planning. Boom. At that moment, several primordial sages who seemed to have been observing for a long time made their moves. Their moves were earth-shattering, displaying unparalleled power that distorted the void. Xiaoping stared at the primordial sages. Having reached the primordial realm, they had already comprehended the laws of the world. A real world was brewing in their bodies. They had reached the supreme realm where they were the world and the world was them. Every move they made contained the power of the world. It was not something the primordial sages could compare to. Such a figure was capable of destroying an expanse of space and collapsing this world with a single attack. Dong dong dong. In an instant, the restriction array around the planet was destroyed. It was as if several primordial sages had joined forces and directly punched a big hole through it. The originally flawless restrictive formation had a flaw in it at this moment. Haha, it's a success. The primordial sages have taken action and broken through the outer restrictive arrays of this planet. We can finally enter this planet. This is great. It can't be. The primordial saints are so powerful that they can even resist the divine restriction? That's not the case. It's just that the divine restrictions in this place have not been maintained for a long time and have also experienced the power of the great calamity. No matter how powerful they were at their peak, their power is now less than 1 in 100 million. The primordial sages studied it for many days and found a flaw in the array formation. If they forcefully attacked, they would naturally be able to break a hole. Cut the crap. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go in. Otherwise, the treasures will be taken away by the other sages. Indeed, this place used to be one of the most important planets in the Eternal Light Realm. Apart from the Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool, there must be other treasures here. That's right. We don't have the right to fight for a Khanate magic treasure like the creation pool, but the same can't be said for other treasures. I believe that people at the level of the primordial sages won't fight with us juniors. The sages were extremely excited when they saw this. Without another word, they immediately rushed toward the hole in the restrictive formation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In a few breaths' time, most of the sages had entered the mysterious planet. Xia Ping was no exception. He followed the other sages and entered the planet. As soon as he entered the planet, Xia Ping immediately sensed that the interior of the planet was much larger than he had imagined. It seemed that the planet had also been completely modified by the gods and contained many folded spaces. This also caused the interior of the planet to be more than 10,000 times larger than it looked on the surface. There were many spatial zones that could accommodate countless people. At the same time, he also sensed that the planet was very unusual. It seemed to be filled with a rich creation aura everywhere. This aura was even more powerful than ordinary cosmic source energy. He could feel all the cells in his body going into a trance when he took a breath. It seemed that cultivating in this place was twice as fast as cultivating in the dragon realm. If an ordinary person were to live in this place, they would grow into a giant who was born with divine strength after many years. I see. Xia Ping finally understood why the legendary humans of the Great World were so much more powerful than those of other worlds. If this world was filled with such creation aura everywhere, one would probably be able to increase one's strength by 0.5 kilogram with every breath they took. Moreover, it would constantly change one's body's aptitude. There was no doubt that even during the era of the gods and when the Eternal Light Realm was at its peak, this place would definitely be the most important place to cultivate in the Eternal Light Realm. It might even be a place where the gods often cultivated. This creation pool is indeed a treasure. I must get it. Xia Ping clenched his fists and his eyes shone. He also knew that the reason this planet could produce such effects was purely because of the Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool. It was precisely because the creation pool could continuously produce creation aura that it constantly transformed the entire planet, turning it into a true holy land for cultivation. If such a Khanate magic treasure were to be integrated into the Classic of Mountains and Seas, then the world of the Classic of Mountains and Seas would constantly be filled with creation aura. It might even be able to recreate the greatness of the Great World in the future. It seems like all the primordial sages have left. Xia Ping scanned the area with his divine sense. He sensed that the dozen or so primordial sages who had first entered the planet were not staying where they were. Instead, they were moving at an extremely fast speed toward the depths of the planet's core. Although they had broken the restrictive array formations, they had only broken the outer restrictive array formations. The Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool, was actually located in the depths of the planet's core. The restrictive array formations there were truly powerful, and they were responsible for protecting the Khanate magic treasure. Therefore, these primordial sages were not interested in the various treasures in the outer regions. They directly flew toward the core region. After all, the Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool, was the most important treasure. As long as one obtained this Khanate magic treasure, the other treasures would not be surprising. They could even use the creation pool to continuously cultivate large amounts of sage herbs. Chapter 25:11. I'm not in a hurry for now. Xia Ping stroked his chin. He decided to temporarily give up on following the ancient sages into the core area. Instead, he chose to explore the outer region in search of treasures. Although he longed for the Khanate magic treasure, the pool of creation, he did not believe that the restrictions in the core area would be so easy to break. Just think about it, just the broken restrictions in the periphery had taken a group of primordial sages a long time to break. As for the restrictive arrays in the core area, they were more complete, so the ancient sages would probably have to be more careful and spend more time. Therefore, he was not worried that the Khanate treasure fortune pool would be taken away by the other sages in a short time. There seems to be a sage medicine growing there. Xia Ping's divine sense instantly covered a radius of 10,000 light-years without any restraint. In truth, the range of his divine sense was much greater than that of the ancient sages. It could be said that the range of his search for treasures was much greater than that of other sages. Often, before the other sages knew what was happening, a treasure would be immediately sensed by his divine sense. This was one of the benefits of a powerful divine sense. It allowed him to take the initiative in every aspect. Immediately, he sensed a sage medicine hidden in the distance. Its aura and appearance were concealed by restrictive arrays. If not for his powerful divine sense, he probably would not have sensed it at all. He did not waste any time. With a flash, he teleported and immediately arrived at the location of the sage medicine. Dong. Xia Ping lightly pointed and instantly broke the restrictive array of the sage medicine. Instantly, a sage medicine appeared before him, exuding a dense sage medicine aura that was mesmerizing. "Ha, master, we're rich. This is the sage medicine Dragon Heart 9 Leaves Ganoderma." The green ox saw the sage medicine and immediately shouted excitedly. This sage medicine is not simple. It has a total of 9 leaves and each leaf possesses a different nomological power. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, lightning, darkness, light, space, and so on. After consuming it, one can immediately comprehend these 9 types of source power of the universe, which is beneficial for comprehending the laws of the world to a certain extent. He was extremely excited. Back when his old master, the Mountain River Sage, was still an ancient sage, he desired to find a Dragon Heart 9 Leaves Ganoderma to help him comprehend the laws of the world and break through to the ancient sage realm. However, this sage medicine was really too rare. Even though the Mountain River Sage searched through most regions of the universe and even offered rewards everywhere, he could not find a single one. In the end, the Mountain River Saint could only give up. After all, this kind of saintly medicine could only be discovered and not sought. It is indeed a good thing. Xia Ping's eyes lit up, and he immediately wanted to pluck the sacred medicine. "Stop, brat. I've taken a fancy to this stock of sacred medicine. Scram immediately." At this moment, an angry shout came from afar. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In an instant, 4 to 5 figures descended. They were all saints of the Black Tortoise race. One of them was an immemorial ancient state early stage saint while the other 4 were middle ancient state pinnacle saints. They immediately discovered the Dragon Heart 9 Leaves Ganoderma in Xia Ping's hand, and their eyes revealed a greedy look. Clearly they also recognized that this was a good item. "Aren't you guys going a little overboard? I was the one who found this sage medicine first. There's a first come, first serve rule for everything." Xia Ping raised his brows and looked at these Black Tortoise race sages. First come, first served? I've never heard of such logic before. In this world, whoever's fist is bigger is right. Since you don't wish to hand it over, you can just die then. In the blink of an eye, that immemorial ancient state early stage saint of the Black Tortoise race struck out. He was vicious to the extreme and decisive. To think that he would make use of the moment he spoke to kill Xia Ping. Evidently, not only did he want to get his hands on the Dragon Heart 9 Leaves Ganoderma, he wanted to kill Xia Ping as well so that he could take all the treasures that Xia Ping had on him. The most important thing was that Xia Ping was all alone in this place without any companions around him. This only served to fuel the killing intent of this ancient saint of the Black Tortoise race. After all, if he were to kill this lad, no one would be able to discover anything. Moreover, he could end the battle quickly and prevent this lad from calling for more companions. Boom. That ancient saint of the Black Tortoise race punched out, bursting forth with a horrifying chi of creation. It was as though it had formed a realm of creation that distorted the void within a radius of several hundred light years. Everything within this realm obeyed his commands and he had absolute control over it. Even the time and space realm would be distorted by the chi of creation. Ordinary Middle Ancient saints would not be able to defend against this at all and could only close their eyes and wait for death. Kill? A cold light flashed in Xia Ping's eyes. He punched out and reached the ancient saint of the Black Tortoise race even though he had attacked later. Supreme Theurgy, 4 seasons alternation. Swoosh. In just an instant, the tyrannical power of spacetime brewed in the depths of his fist and converged into a huge yin and yang millstone. It seemed to have formed a dark vortex that contained a horrifying power of spacetime strangulation. Vaguely, the huge yin and yang millstone seemed to have the spacetime power of the 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter circulating. It was like a reincarnation cycle that obliterated everything. What? The ancient saint of the Black Tortoise race was taken aback. He could feel that this punch contained great terror. It seemed to have far surpassed the pinnacle that a middle ancient saint could unleash. It seemed as though the laws of spacetime had been activated to the extreme. Boom. The realm of creation on his body could not withstand the power of spacetime strangulation. It was forcibly shattered in an instant and turned into a chaotic state. Even the massive chi of creation was crushed into powder by the yin and yang millstone. Nothing could survive in this spacetime millstone. It was like a black hole that devoured everything. The ancient saint of the Black Tortoise race spat out a mouthful of blood. Because the realm of creation had been broken, his internal organs and even his soul had been directly injured. At the same time, the spacetime millstone silently bombarded the depths of his body. In an instant, he felt as though the spacetime power of the 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter were revolving in his body. They were constantly reincarnating and alternating. His soul seemed to be sucked into a millstone and was constantly being obliterated. He could not help but let out a shrill scream. It's really effective. Xiaoping was extremely excited. This was the first time he had tested the supreme theurgy that he had created, 4 seasons alternation. This theurgy had already deduced the laws of spacetime to the extreme. Vaguely, this theurgy even contained a trace of the embryonic form of the laws of reincarnation. Ordinary ancient saints would not be able to withstand this punch and would explode on the spot. If they were hit by the spacetime millstone, their entire soul would be pulled into the spacetime millstone and be obliterated. It was as though billions of years had passed in a single breath. They would completely lose their sense of time and even their memories would be lost bit by bit. In the end, they would become an idiot without any memories. Chapter 25:12. This divine ability created by Master is really powerful. When Azure Ox and Corinne saw this scene, they sighed with emotion again and again. They were also experienced and knowledgeable old monsters. How could they not know the terror of Xiaoping's punch? It simply surpassed the limits of the Middle Ages saints. When the punch was launched, the law of time and space turned into a time-space millstone. It continuously obliterated all space-time substances and could even pull the enemy's soul into the time-space millstone. In this way, the enemy would fall into a space-time disorder. Only 1 second had passed in the outside world, but 100 million years had passed in the time-space millstone. As the seasons continued to change, the enemy's soul memory was also slowly being obliterated. Even if this power could not kill the enemy's soul, as long as the enemy's memory was erased into a blank piece of paper, it would be equivalent to killing the enemy. The concept of life itself would be destroyed. This was a little similar to the soul-consuming Mengpo's soup, completely erasing the memory of its previous life. Damn brat, stop immediately. Attack, kill this strange guy. The other 4 Black Tortoise Middle Ages sages were shocked and angry when they saw this scene. They originally thought that it would be a piece of cake for the ancient sages of their race to kill a mere Middle Ages sage. However, they did not expect that with just one blow, their Black Tortoise ancient sage would fall into a desperate situation. It was as if he was beaten half to death by a punch and fell into a space-time disorder. If this continued, their Black Tortoise ancient sage would probably be killed by the Middle Ages sage. What kind of joke was this? How many years had it been since the Middle Ages killed the ancient sages? They could not see their ancient sage in such a desperate situation and immediately take action. Rumble. Suddenly, the spacetime domains crushed down and blasted towards Xiaoping. The spacetime domains intertwined with each other and exploded with endless killing intent. It was as if this domain was going to be destroyed. One could imagine that these Black Tortoise Peak Middle Ages sages had gone all out. They wanted to completely kill this strange Middle Ages sage, leaving no room for maneuver. Xiaoping instantly sensed the actions of the other 4 Middle Ages sages. He pointed at the void. Divine ability, Indra Finger. As this finger blasted out, it seemed that at this moment the entire world's spacetime had come to a standstill. It was as if everything in the world had turned into an eternal state. An inexplicable Zen intent was born at this moment, spreading out in all directions. At this moment he felt as if he had turned into the Grim Reaper in the depths of the void, grasping the threads of karma and controlling the lives and fates of all living things in the world. He had also turned into absolute rationality without any emotions. Right now he was merely granting death to these few ancient saints. Swish 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 swish. In an instant, terrifying finger forces blasted out along the karma lines. They were formless and invisible, and there was no power that could restrain them. In an instant they broke through the 4 spacetime domains and directly bombarded the bodies of the 4 medieval saints. What? The 4 ancient saints of the Black Tortoise race were startled, and their hair stood on end. They felt as if they were being targeted by the god of death, and the finger of the god of death poked at them from the depths of the void. They immediately felt an irresistible sense of powerlessness in the depths of their hearts. Regardless of whether it was their holy artifacts or their defensive abilities, none of them were of any use. Rumble, with just a single strike, the power instantly exploded in the bodies of the 4 Middle Ancient Sages, instantly shattering the karma threads between them and Xiaoping. Ah! The 4 ancient saints of the Black Tortoise race immediately let out shrill cries. They could not even resist for a second, and they immediately died, their souls completely shattered. Their corpses also fell to the ground, forcefully smashing a huge pit. Gravel flew in all directions and smoke and dust billowed. After dying, the eyes of these few ancient saints were still wide open, revealing expressions of indignation, fear, regret, and so on. They seemed to be regretting why they did not escape sooner. Unfortunately, it was too late. Even if they wanted to escape, it was too late. Master is really too powerful. The green bull was full of admiration. He could feel the power of this finger, which contained a trace of the true essence of the laws of karma. It was simply unavoidable and unstoppable, like the finger of the Grim Reaper. Under normal circumstances, these few pinnacle ancient saints could still be killed, as they had all sorts of strange and powerful techniques. However, against their own master they were killed with just a finger, and their souls were completely turned into dust. One could imagine how powerful this ability was. It was not inferior to the supreme ability of the alternation of seasons. Die. Xiaoping turned around. He also sensed that the ancient saint of the Black Tortoise race, who had fallen into the alternation of seasons, seemed to be struggling to escape from the spacetime millstone. However, there was no way he would give the ancient saint such a chance. He attacked with another finger. Dong. Immediately, the ancient saint of the Black Tortoise race died. Even his soul was completely shattered by this finger. It was as if all the threads of karma had disappeared without a trace. Even if there were other invincible saints who came to this place and tried to trace the ancient fragments, they would not be able to do anything. Because such fragments had long been erased by the power of karma, as if they had been completely formatted. These 2 abilities really have potential. Their killing power is unparalleled. Xiaoping clenched his fists. He was becoming more and more confident in these 2 abilities that he had created. They were still inexperienced, but they could easily kill an ancient saint and 4 pinnacle ancient saints. As his strength continued to improve, these 2 abilities would naturally become more and more powerful. Whoosh, he grabbed with his hand and immediately grabbed the corpses of the 5 Black Tortoise race saints, handing them to the World Tree to devour. He believed that he would soon have 4 fruits of time and 1 fruit of creation. There are enemies coming. Xiaoping narrowed his eyes. His divine sense sensed that there seemed to be more than 10 saints rushing over. It was probably because the shockwaves from the battle between him and the Black Tortoise race saints were too intense and attracted the attention of the other saints. They wanted to come and see what was going on. After all, it was very likely that a battle had taken place on this planet because they had obtained some precious treasures. Regarding this matter, the other saints also wanted a share of the loot. There was even a chance that they could kill the saints of the enemy race and seize the treasures. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. However, the speed of his attack was too fast. He killed the Black Tortoise race saints in a few breaths. It was likely that the other saints who coveted this place would also be wary. Whoosh! Xiaoping grabbed the Dragonheart 9-leaf Ganoderma and put it into the world of the classic of mountains and seas. His figure flashed and he instantly left the place. Chapter 25:13. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Not long after Xiaoping left, many figures flew over from afar. They were all immemorial ancient sages and all of them gave off a strong aura that suppressed the entire void. Strange? I clearly sensed the aura of the immemorial ancient sages just now. Why did they disappear all of a sudden? One of the immemorial ancient sages squinted his eyes. He tried to sense the remaining auras around him, but he couldn't sense anything at all. It was just a state of nothingness. It's indeed strange. If I'm not wrong, the ones that appeared here should be the Black Tortoise race's sages. But now they've disappeared. Could they have been killed in an instant? Another immemorial ancient sage frowned. Impossible. Those are immemorial ancient sages we're talking about. They're powerful existences that have grasped the laws of creation. How could they be killed so easily? That's right. Moreover, most of the immemorial ancient sages have entered the core region. The other sages shouldn't be able to kill the immemorial ancient sages. This is just unbelievable. Indeed. That's why I sensed the aura of the battle and thought that some treasure had appeared here. I immediately rushed over to check it out. Who knew that I wouldn't be able to see anything? No. This isn't impossible. After all, this is the cosmic world and it's filled with formidable restrictions and formations. If one were to accidentally touch the remaining restrictions here, then one might be instantly trapped to death. Forget it. It seems like the person who killed the Black Tortoise race's sages is extremely powerful. To be able to do something like this, he must have some skills. It's best that we don't provoke him. The immemorial ancient sages discussed and their expressions were extremely solemn. They could sense that the enemy who could kill the Black Tortoise race's sages was extremely powerful and definitely not to be underestimated. Although they really wanted to get their hands on the treasures, they didn't want to provoke such an enemy. After all, they were here to search for treasures and not to provoke a strong enemy and have a life-and-death battle. If they could obtain a large amount of treasures without any battle, that would be the most ideal situation. Thinking about this, they didn't stay here and left quickly. Because they weren't the only ones who could sense the battle ripples. It seemed like the sages of the other races had also discovered it and were rushing over. It was just that they were the closest and they were the fastest to arrive. If the sages of the other races were here, they might start fighting with them. And that would be an undeserved disaster. A few days later, somewhere in the outer region, 4 to 5 middle-aged saints and 1 primordial saint from the Divine Bird by Fang clan gathered together to explore the surroundings, trying to find treasures in this place. Look, that's the sage herb octagonal mysterious ice grass. An ancient saint of the Bai Fang clan cried out excitedly, pointing at a sacred medicine wrapped in a restrictive formation in front of them. It was a spirit herb that was snow-white all over, as if it was made of ice, and emitted a dense cold air. It was as if the temperature emitted by this spirit herb was extremely close to the realm of absolute zero. Everything in the surroundings seemed to be frozen by the cold air emitted by this spirit herb. What a great treasure. This octagonal mysterious ice grass is simply an ice-type panacea. It contains pure ice origin energy and the purest laws of the world. Its medicinal power is extraordinary. Such a panacea is definitely priceless. Another Middle Eras Bai Fang said excitedly. Even if such a sacred medicine was not suitable for their Bai Fang clan, they could sell it to those saints who cultivated the law of ice. He believed that these sages who cultivated the law of ice would definitely desire such a sacred medicine. They could definitely sell it for an extremely high price, allowing them to make a fortune. Everyone don't move. Let me do it. The ancient Bai Fang's eyes shone brightly. It personally took action and broke the restrictive formation in this place. It instantly wanted to pluck this sacred medicine, the octagonal mysterious ice grass. The other saints of the Bai Fang clan clenched their teeth. They were very unwilling. If the ancient Bai Fang managed to pluck this sacred medicine, the benefits that they could obtain would be extremely small. Most of the benefits would definitely be snatched away by the ancient Bai Fang. However, they could not do anything about it. After all, this place was really too dangerous. There were saints of other clans everywhere. If these Middle Era saints joined forces and accidentally encountered an ancient saint, they would probably be dead. For their own safety, they were forced to team up with an ancient saint in their clan. This way they could at least ensure their own safety. However, this would also cause their benefits to be greatly reduced. Boom. However, at this instant, a figure appeared from the depths of the void. A punch was thrown, and it was as if a huge space-time wheel was crushing down. It contained the space-time powers of the 4 seasons, such as spring, summer, autumn, and winter. A terrifying vortex power was produced, and it locked all of the ancient Bai Fang's chi activity and power. Who is it? The ancient Bai Fang was shocked. It completely did not expect to encounter such a strong enemy at this time. Moreover, it was attacked at the moment when it was the most relaxed. It did not have time to react at all. Boom. In the next second, the punch landed on the ancient Bai Fang's head. In an instant it was dizzy. It was as if it had fallen into the chaos of space-time, and it was pulled into the depths of the spacetime cycle. The surrounding spacetime laws were torn apart, and it seemed to turn into chaos. It could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. It could not withstand this power at all. Damn it, this is the Dragon Clan's little thief Wu Wuti. Recently this fellow has been sneaking around and robbing other saints. Who knows how many saints have fallen into this little thief's hands. He is really despicable and shameless. A Middle Era by Fang shouted. It seemed to have remembered what had happened in the past few days. There seemed to be a shameless giant dragon in the Dragon Clan. He was best at sneaking around and secretly killing people. He would often take advantage of the most critical moment when they were harvesting holy herbs and fighting for treasures. He would kill many saints with one punch. Even the ancient saints fell for his tricks. If they were lucky, they could take the opportunity to escape, and also have a chance to expose the shameless dragon's evil deeds. But if they were unlucky, they would immediately be turned into ashes. The most despicable thing was that this Wu Wuti did not even spare the giant dragons of his own race. He did not care about meat or vegetables and was extremely cruel. They completely did not expect to encounter such a despicable dragon at this time. What? It's the despicable Wu Wuti. Hurry up and inform the other Baifang saints to come over and join forces to kill this shameless dragon. A Middle Era Baifang shouted. He immediately wanted to call his friends and get a group of Baifangs to gang up on this dragon. Against such a shameless dragon, no matter what methods they used, it would be the right thing to do. The Third Sect Leader. Chapter 25:14. Of course, this giant dragon Wu Wuti was the human Xiaoping. Over the past few days, he had relied on the concealment power of the invisible mask to restrain his aura and hide in the dark. At the crucial moment, he had appeared and robbed many sages. Everything had been going well. With the mystique of the Four Seasons, the reincarnation brush, the Book of Karma, and other treasures, it was easy for him to assassinate some ancient sages. But occasionally there were some sages who were extremely good at escaping. At the crucial moment, they managed to avoid his killer move, tear the void, and escape. As a result, the reputation of the giant dragon Wu Wuti spread. All the races knew that some sages had been killed recently, and their treasures had been taken away. It was all because of him. This also made more sages gnash their teeth at Wu Wuti, and they were always careful. But these Baifang did not expect their luck to be so bad. They had actually encountered the famous thief of the Dragon Clan at this time, and they had really been ambushed. But what kind of person was Xiaoping? Naturally, he could tell what these Baifang were planning. Without a doubt, they had seen that the situation was not good, and they wanted to summon reinforcements from their own race. He had seen this kind of thing many times. Naturally, he would not give them any chance. Indra Finger. Xiaoping channeled the enormous spiritual power in his body. The 9 purple kingdom spaces shook and he attacked with his finger. Bang bang bang. In an instant, the 5 medieval Baifang and 1 primordial Baifang were unable to endure such force, and they instantly fainted and fell to the ground while spitting up blood without end. Now that he was more and more familiar with this mystique, he could control his power to the microscopic level. He could kill his enemies, but he could also severely injure them and put them in a state of near death. Haha, the classic of mountains and seas has gained a few more coolies. Xiaoping happily captured these few divine Baifang into the world of the classic of mountains and seas. To be honest, if he could, he was a little reluctant to kill these divine beasts. Imprisoning these divine beasts in the world of the classic of mountains and seas to increase his power was the best arrangement. But there was really no other way. If these divine beasts would rather die than submit, he could only kill them with his own hands. After all, no matter what, he would be able to benefit. The Baifang came so quickly. Looks like I've really pissed them off this time. Xiaoping scanned the area with his divine sense, spreading it over tens of thousands of light years. He immediately sensed the distortion of the void in the distance. It was obvious that the saints of the Baifang clan in the vicinity had received the distress call from the Middle Ages Baifang. Moreover, the Baifang clan was also considered a divine bird clan. They were proficient in the law of space and were extremely fast. Even though they were not as fast as the rock, they were still far faster than ordinary divine beasts. If they were to send reinforcements with all their might, they would be able to traverse countless light years in just a few breaths' time. He made a grabbing motion and immediately snatched the octagonal mysterious ice grass. Then he entered the void and concealed his aura, leaving the void silently. A few seconds after Xiaoping left, the space in the distance split open. Immediately, many primordial Baifang descended. Even a primordial Baifang was alarmed. Damn it, that Wu Wuti ran away again. Seeing the situation in the surroundings, the few Baifang that had called for help had all disappeared without a trace. There was no aura left. An ancient Baifang roared angrily. It was simply unable to restrain its anger. With its body as the center, a terrifying domain of creation surged out, shattering the surrounding void. It seemed to have turned into a state of nothingness, displaying an extremely terrifying destructive power. However, no matter how it searched the nearby void, it could not find any traces or aura of Xia Ping. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air in this universe. The Dragon Clan is too much. They are simply too unbridled. They even killed the saints of the Baifang clan just like that, causing us to suffer heavy losses. We must make them give us an explanation. Another primordial Baifang was furious. It should be known that there were very few Baifang divine birds, especially those above the immemorial ancient level. One less meant one would be gone. Who knew how long it would take to replenish such high-end combat power? However, that Wu Wuti of the Dragon Clan had actually dared to do such a thing. He had killed the Baifang clan's primordial saint. This was basically an irreconcilable enmity with the Baifang clan. How could they tolerate such a thing? We can't give them an explanation. One of the primordial Baifang gritted its teeth. Previously, I once questioned the saints of the Dragon Clan, asking them to hand over that Wu Wuti and get rid of this scourge. Who would have thought that these bastards of the Dragon Clan would actually say that fighting for treasures in the Eternal Light Realm is the law of the jungle, where the strong are respected. If they die, they can only blame themselves for being weak and inferior. If those bastards are still mocking us and are really worried that the entire Baifang clan will die, why don't they leave the Eternal Light Realm now? Don't enter this place to plunder treasures. After all, even if the weak clans obtain treasures, they won't be able to keep them. Weak clans? These four-legged worms actually dare to say that the Baifang clan is a weak clan? They must have eaten a bear's heart or a leopard's gall. What gave them such courage? Do you know that in the previous universe era, the number of giant dragons that our Baifang clan had eaten was simply innumerable? Hearing this, an immemorial Baifang was so enraged that its lungs were about to explode. It can't be helped. Now that the Dragon Clan is powerful, they are becoming more and more arrogant. They rely on their numbers to bully the other divine beast clans. Previously they even mocked the Phoenix clan, saying that a fallen phoenix is inferior to a chicken. An immemorial Baifang gritted its teeth. Damn the Dragon Clan. Sooner or later, these four-legged worms will also be unlucky. Just you wait. The immemorial Baifang was so angry that its nose was crooked. It wanted nothing more than to rush over and destroy all the giant dragons. However, it still suppressed its anger because the Dragon Clan also had immemorial giant dragons, and there were quite a few of them. If a rash conflict broke out, it would not be good for it either. Now is not the time to start a conflict with the Dragon Clan. We have to first obtain the Khanate treasure creation pool. The immemorial Baifang clenched its fists. Bear with it for now. Don't let Wu Wuti find an opportunity again. Also, this time there are many divine beast clans that died because of Wu Wuti. Perhaps you can join forces and capture Wu Wuti. As long as you can lure him out and make him enter the trap, he will definitely die. It felt that it could not let the Baifang clan saint be left alone. Otherwise, similar things would continue to happen. Don't worry. I've already contacted the other Black Tortoise clan, Phoenix clan, Qilin clan, Kueox clan, Flying Serpent clan, and so on. This time, that shameless Wu Wuti will definitely not have it easy. An immemorial Baifang revealed a ferocious look. That's good. If you discover that brat's whereabouts, immediately inform me. Even if I have to bully the weak, I will eat that four-legged worm alive. The immemorial Baifang was filled with killing intent. Third sect leader. Chapter 25:15. At this time, the other races also learned that the Baifang saints had been robbed by Wu Wuti of the Dragon Clan. The saints could not help but be in an uproar. Damn four-legged reptile, too arrogant. He killed so many Baifang saints just like that. He's too unscrupulous. Isn't the Dragon Clan afraid of being besieged by us? A Qilin saint gritted his teeth. How can we be afraid? Those saints of the Dragon Clan are very arrogant. They said that we were robbed because we were not as skilled. If we were not capable, we should get out of the Eternal Light Realm and cry in our mother's arms. A Black Tortoise saint was very sinister. He fanned the flames and spread rumors. I'll cry for their ancestors. If those four-legged reptiles really said that, I'll go kill those bastards right now. The Phoenix Saint was very hot-tempered. He immediately felt a surge of anger in his heart. He could not stand such disdain and mockery. But what's going on with that Wu Wuti? We saints have strong senses. We can penetrate every corner of the void, but we still can't find any trace of him. How did he do it? Some saints were very puzzled by Xiaoping's concealment method. I'm not sure. We don't know what race that Wu Wuti of the Dragon Clan is. It seems that even the Dragon Clan itself is not very clear. It seems that he has always been unknown and only became famous now. Could it be the invisible dragon? In the primordial age, there was a particularly arrogant invisible dragon that appeared in the Dragon Clan. He stole the treasures of other saints and did some sneaky things. His name was Theodore. This dragon is even more despicable than Wu Wuti. If not for the invasion of the abyssal demons, Theodore would have long become the universe's public enemy. Yes, I've also heard the elders say that the invisible dragon Theodore is despicable. It's several times more disgusting than a fly. Fortunately, it was killed by the abyssal demons. Otherwise, the elders of our clan would have to do it themselves. I didn't expect another Wu Wuti to appear now, and he's also proficient in concealment. I'm afraid this is also the invisible dragon Theodore. Otherwise, it's impossible that so many saints have gathered and not discovered its whereabouts. No matter what, we have to be careful during this period of time. We can't let Wu Wuti discover that we're alone. Otherwise, we'll definitely be attacked again. The sages discussed among themselves. They were afraid of Wu Wuti's threat and decided to travel in groups, not giving Wu Wuti a chance to attack. Wu Wuti's name also became famous among these sages. Of course, this news did not only spread among the other godly beast clans. Many sages of the dragon race also knew about this. As expected of the geniuses of my dragon clan. You killed those idiots from the Kirin clan, Phoenix clan, and Black Tortoise clan to the point of scurrying away like rats and not daring to be arrogant anymore. Let's see if they still dare to be arrogant in front of me in the future. One of the primordial dragons felt extremely refreshed when he heard the news. It was as if he had drunk ice water during the hottest days of the year. Isn't that right? That group of idiots actually dared to mock our dragon clan as four-legged reptiles. Isn't it obvious who is the loser now? Now, we've merely sent out an ordinary middle ancient dragon of our dragon race and he's already beaten these races to the point of scurrying away like rats. Who knows how many immemorial ancient state sages have fallen and turned into ashes? Another primordial dragon laughed heartily. That group of idiots actually wanted to denounce us and demand that we hand over Wu Wuti. What a joke. I wanted to spit at them on the spot. That's a shameless request. It's obvious that they're not as skilled as others, yet they still dare to come to us. They want to come to the eternal light domain to look for treasures when they're not capable enough. They want to complain after suffering some grievances. What a joke. Do they really think that the eternal light domain is their home? An primordial red dragon said disdainfully. That's right. We can't spoil such sages. Otherwise, others will think that our dragon clan is their vassal race. So what if we kill some sages of other races? You have to pay the price when you come out. If you don't understand this, how would you dare to enter the eternal light domain to look for treasures? You might as well go home and sleep. The other giant dragons laughed coldly. Of course, they would not agree to such a foolish request. But where did this Wu Wuti come from? Why haven't I heard of his name before? A dragon asked curiously. That was because any giant dragon with a bit of talent would enter the Dragon God Hall after advancing to the Sage Realm. Although there were many holy dragons in the Dragon Realm, they would definitely know their names after getting along with them for many years. Not to mention that this Wu Wuti seemed to be able to kill people from the primordial era. Such monstrous combat power was second to none even among the many holy dragons. He would definitely be famous in the Dragon Realm, but it actually did not know this Wu Wuti. I'm not very sure, but it said that he's the younger brother of Master Wu Taidu, who has recently become famous in the Dragon Realm. It's just that he has been sleeping in his cave and rarely comes out. He didn't join the Dragon God Hall either, so he's unknown. A dragon shared some information that he knew. So it's such a low-key giant dragon. But no matter what, he's a member of our dragon clan. Naturally, we have to take good care of him. We must not let the sages of other races ambush and kill him. Such a dragon needs to be nurtured. Who knows, there might be another invincible dragon in the Dragon Realm in the future. Many giant dragons discussed animatedly. They were in a very good mood. A few days later, Xiaoping was also constantly searching for treasures in the outer area. During this period he also found some sage medicine. He had also fought several battles and killed the sages of various races in an instant, showing the tyrannical power of his martial Tao. However, as time passed, the treasures in the outer area seemed to become fewer and fewer. Often there was no way to find a sage medicine for a long time. Even if he found some Dharma treasures, they seemed to be unable to withstand the power of the great destruction of the universe. They turned into ashes and countless fragments in an instant. Perhaps the treasures that could withstand the great destruction of the universe were at least Dharma treasures of the divine artifact level or above. Other treasures could not withstand the power of the great destruction at all. Of course, the most important thing was that his robbing career seemed to be getting more and more difficult. Because of the previous robberies, the sages of other races were extremely wary of him. Every time they searched for treasures, they would be in groups and they would even contact each other. Once Xia Ping made a move, he was afraid that he would immediately be attacked. Maybe if he delayed for a few minutes, he would even provoke the primordial sages. It could be said that Xia Ping had now become a thorn in the side of the sages of other races. They wanted to kill him as soon as possible. How stingy. Didn't I just rob some treasures? Is there a need to be so nervous? Xia Ping shook his head and felt that it was a pity. It seemed that he would have to take a break from his robbing operation. Chapter 25:16. Seems like it's time to enter the core area. Xia Ping rubbed his chin. During this period of time, he realized that he really could not find any treasures in the outer area. He was already extremely lucky to have obtained the Dragon Heart 9-leaf Ganoderma. At the same time, the sages of the other races were also extremely guarded against him. They seemed to be looking for traces of him everywhere. Even if he stopped robbing, the sages would probably call their friends to find trouble with him after seeing his whereabouts. This made it a little difficult for him to move around in the outer area. Moreover, the sages of the primordial sages were currently exploring the core area's restrictive formations. They had also eliminated many dangers, so it was a good time to investigate. Thinking of this, he did not hesitate. His figure flashed, and he immediately traversed countless spaces, heading towards the core area. It did not take long for Xia Ping to arrive at the core region of the planet. It was a huge independent space like a sphere that enveloped the entire core region. The place emitted dense creation chi that was almost tangible. It was more than 10 times that of the outside world. Taking a slight breath seemed to be able to extend one's lifespan and increase one's soul power. Without a doubt, this was definitely a sacred place for cultivation. Even a saint like Xia Ping could feel that every single cell in his body was cheering excitedly in this place, constantly devouring the creation chi that seeped in from all directions. Even the infernal golden crow cells in his body were rapidly awakening. Compared to pure cultivation, it was much more efficient. One could imagine that this was the power of the connate magic treasure, the pool of creation. As expected, the restrictive formations here haven't been broken. Xia Ping narrowed his eyes and looked at the independent space that was like a ball of light in the distance. The surroundings of this independent space were densely packed with restrictive formations, and they were like the chains of order that enveloped the entire space sphere. It was simply airtight, and these laws of order were circulating at all times without end while emitting the extremely powerful energy of the laws of the universe. It seemed that if one got too close, they would be shocked by the order of order and be severely injured on the spot. Even the sages were no exception. At this moment, many sages, primordial sages, and even sages from the Middle Ages had arrived near the core area. Their expressions were solemn as they seemed to be observing the flaws of the independent space's restrictive formations. And this situation had been going on for several days. What's going on? Could it be that I still can't obtain the fortune pool? An ancient sage who had just arrived could not help but ask his fellow sage curiously about the current situation. Of course they can't. If they could, they would have started fighting long ago. How could they be as safe and sound as they are now? Both sides are gathered together safely. A saint at the side said in a deep voice, "There are dozens of divine restrictions set up in this place. They fuse with the void and condense into one. They contain the power of many laws of the universe. It's simply airtight and flawless. It's completely different from the restrictions and array formations in the outside world. This kind of restrictive formation seemed to be called a void divine restriction, and it was one of the highest level of divine restrictions. Therefore you can imagine how powerful this divine restriction is. It can even withstand the power of the great destruction of the universe. Even though it is quite damaged now, it is not something that the primordial sages can easily deal with. In fact, not to mention primordial sages, even if an invincible sage came here, it would not be easy for them to break the restriction array here. He indicated that the divine restrictions here were powerful enough to be mentioned in the same breath as those in the Forbidden Darkness Zone. They could not act rashly. Otherwise, even the primordial sages would die. I see. That's why the primordial sages are in a stalemate here. It seems that they are trying to find a flaw in the restriction array here. Whoever finds it will have the upper hand. The primordial sage could not help but nod. He also understood why they were in such a stalemate. It was not that the primordial sages did not want to enter and obtain the fortune pool, but that they could not enter at all. That's only natural. No matter what, it would take at least a few months to break the spirit arrays here. It seems that we will have to fight a long battle to obtain the fortune pool. An ancient sage shook his head. He felt that he would have to wait for a while. However, to a saint, a mere few months was nothing. Even a few hundred years would pass by in the blink of an eye, like a nap. Interesting. Avoid divine restriction. Xia Ping rubbed his chin. He stared at the huge ball of light in the distance and immediately used the infernal golden crow's eye. Boom. In an instant, the interior of the huge ball of light appeared in the depths of his eyes. Nothing could be hidden from his eyes. There was a huge space inside the ball of light, covering an area of tens of millions of square kilometers. There seemed to be many luxurious palaces built in it. At the very center was the largest palace, and inside it was a pool made entirely of jade. A large amount of transparent liquid kept gushing out from the depths of the pool, and a large amount of creation chi was also emitting from the surroundings. Without a doubt, this jade pool was the renowned Khanate magic treasure, the pool of good fortune. Inside the pool was the liquid formed from the creation chi, the creation liquid. It could be said that the creation liquid was more than 100 times more precious than the creation chi. The energy contained in every drop of the creation liquid was beyond the sage's imagination. If an ordinary person were to soak in it for a long time, they would be able to cleanse their marrow and obtain the body of creation. By then, whether it was cultivation or understanding the laws of the universe, it would be twice the result with half the effort. However, this space was surrounded by numerous formidable divine restrictions, and there was a total of 108 of them. They formed a three-dimensional spatial defense that covered every corner of this space, and they sealed off the laws of space. It seemed to have frozen this expanse of space and no energy was able to shake it. It seemed to have formed an absolute domain. Even an invincible sage could not break in. Xia Ping narrowed his eyes. He saw that there seemed to be dozens of damaged god restrictions in the depths of the void. The traces of the god restriction array were all broken, and many cracks appeared in the void. Evidently, after experiencing the age of great destruction, even though the god restrictions here were of the highest level, they could not possibly be unscathed. They still caused great damage. As expected, there is a flaw in this place. Xia Ping touched his chin and stared at the god restriction array in front of him. Suddenly, in the void far away there were 5 or 6 spacetime cracks that could enter this space. However, these spacetime cracks appeared and disappeared from time to time. The god restrictions kept rotating around the ball of light. They would only reveal these spacetime cracks at certain special moments. If one missed this moment and forced his way in, he would immediately be killed by these god restrictions. It was extremely dangerous. Chapter 25:17. Found it? Now's the time. Xia Ping narrowed his eyes. His golden crow of hell looked at the flaw of the restrictive spell formation. His figure flashed, and he used the formless mask to conceal his aura, disappearing from where he was. There were many ancient sages and even primordial sages in the surroundings. Their divine senses were constantly scanning the surroundings, penetrating the void and monitoring every corner. However, none of them could sense the existence of the Khanate treasure, the formless mask. To them, the formless mask was an intangible treasure. Whoosh. At that moment, Xia Ping seemed to have turned into a beam of light and entered the spacetime gap created by the restrictive formation of the void in the distance. Fortunately, the restrictive formation of the void had been destroyed, resulting in a flaw. If it had been at its peak, he wouldn't have been able to enter even with the golden crow of hell's eye. Of course, if it had been at its peak, he wouldn't even have been able to enter the cosmic light realm. Is this the inner space? In the next second, Xia Ping passed through the restrictive formation of the void and arrived in another space. He appeared in the middle of a group of palaces. In the distance, there were huge palaces that were engraved with countless mysterious inscriptions that seemed to exude an incredible power of law. These palaces seemed to have formed a powerful restrictive formation. The mysterious inscriptions seemed to have formed the lines of the laws of the universe, resonating with each other. If an enemy entered, they would immediately be killed by the combined forces of the restrictive formation. Fortunately, this place had long since been deserted. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had a chance to enter. The Khanate treasure, the creation pool, should be here. Xiaoping rubbed his chin. His figure flashed, and he flew toward the end of the palace at top speed. Whoosh! Not long after, he landed in a huge and majestic palace. Inside the palace, there was a huge white jade pool that emitted clouds of white mist. This white jade pool was the creation pool. The closer he got to the place, the more he could sense the power of the creation chi. It was as if he could become an immortal just by breathing it. It's really here. When Xiaoping saw the creation pool in front of him, he was instantly excited. He could sense the greatness of this white jade pool. It was as if it was constantly communicating with the origin of the universe, devouring large amounts of origin energy and transforming it into creation chi. Even though countless eras had passed, this pool was still in perfect condition. It was as if it had been left there quietly, waiting for its next owner. He walked in front of the fortune pool, intending to refine it and take it for himself so that he could pack it up and take it away. However, he soon discovered that this creation pool was actually the core of the entire space. It was the energy point of all the restrictive spell formations, and the crux of why this divine restriction had been able to maintain its operation for billions of years. If the fortune pool was taken away, it would affect everything else. It would cause the entire restrictive spell formation to collapse, creating an unparalleled destructive force. Furthermore, this creation pool was fused with all the restrictive arrays, so it was very difficult to take it away. It was obvious that the people who had created this world had thought of this. To prevent anyone from stealing the creation pool, they had connected the entire creation pool to this world. In that case, if one wanted to steal the creation pool, they would have to steal the entire world and be completely embedded in this world. It seems like I'll have to rely on the power of the system to take away this creation pool. Thinking of this, Xiaoping touched his chin and immediately asked the system in his body. To completely refine the entire creation pool, you'll need 100 hatred crystals. The system replied. 100 hatred crystals? That's easy. I'll exchange for it. Hearing this, Xiaoping did not expect it to be so simple. His eyes immediately lit up. It was only 100 hatred crystals and he could get a Khanate treasure. This was a great deal. All right, host. As you wish, the system said. With a boom, an extremely mysterious and great power descended from Xiaoping's body. In an instant, Xiaoping's soul was forcibly integrated into the Khanate treasure, the creation pool. Whoosh! Xiaoping felt the stars move and the space change. His soul easily integrated into the core of the Khanate treasure, the creation pool. All the defensive restrictive spells were completely destroyed and seeped in. With a boom, his body trembled. He felt that his soul had completely integrated with the Khanate treasure, the creation pool. Huge amounts of creation chi surged into his limbs and bones as if they were free. Pa. In an instant, the golden crow of hell cells in his body were also awakening crazily. Even the magic power in his body was rapidly increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if he had an extremely powerful treasure that could assist in cultivation on his body. It was as if he had turned on a cheat. Huge amounts of creation chi surged into every corner of his body. Boom. At this moment, the Khanate treasure, the creation pool, automatically detached itself from the restrictive spells here. The god who had built the restrictive spells here probably did not expect this. There was actually someone who could force the Khanate treasure, the creation pool, to recognize him as its master. He even made the creation pool detach itself from the restrictive spells here. In this way, all the defensive measures would be useless. After all, this was the core of the restrictive spells here. All the defensive mechanisms were only to guard against powerful enemies outside. There had never been any defensive measures against the Khanate treasure, the creation pool. Rumble, at this moment the entire vast space shook as if a huge earthquake was happening. The tremors quickly spread out from this space, affecting a radius of hundreds of thousands of light years. The many sages outside also felt the intense tremors. What's going on? Why is the space here suddenly shaking? A primordial sage suddenly stood up. He did not know what was happening. He had just been carefully observing this place for flaws, trying to find an opportunity to enter. Who would have thought that such an earth-shattering turn of events would occur in such a short period of time? He was truly at a loss for what to do. Damn it. The space here is about to collapse. It's going to explode. A primordial sage's expression changed drastically. His face turned ashen. He could clearly feel that the originally powerful, almost perfect and flawless void divine seals were now collapsing. It was as if the void divine seals were shattering from the inside out. They completely broke apart and collapsed. This also caused the entire space inside to collapse just like that. An extremely powerful spacetime storm and the power of the void swept out in all directions with the world in front of him as the core. It was as if it was going to completely explode. Chapter 25:18. Damn it, what's going on? All of the sages were stunned. They did not know what had happened. It was fine just now, why did this happen? Some of the primordial sages were dumbfounded. Someone must have snuck into this spatial world and tried to break the restriction formation. In the end, it caused a chain reaction that caused the formation to collapse, causing immeasurable damage. Some of the primordial sages had a gloomy expression. He had studied the restriction formation here for a long time. To be honest, the restriction formation here had long reached a perfect state. It was stable and sturdy, having operated for billions of eras without any changes. It didn't make sense that it couldn't withstand the pressure at this time and suddenly collapsed. So, the only explanation was that someone had snuck into this spatial world and used some unknown method to cause the divine void restriction of this spatial world to be severely damaged and collapse everywhere. Bastard, which bastard did such an immoral thing? Don't let me find you or I'll definitely tear you to pieces. One of the primordial sages roared angrily. He was exasperated to the extreme. Originally, these sages had been safe and sound together because they wanted to find a safe opportunity to enter and snatch the Khanate magic treasure creation pool inside. But now, there was actually a despicable and shameless thief that had actually entered this spatial world ahead of time and caused trouble everywhere. He had even caused the entire restrictive formation to collapse, causing immeasurable destructive force to be produced. What the hell are you talking about? Hurry up and run. If we wait for the restriction formation to completely explode, all of us sages will die, another primordial sage roared angrily. It suddenly discovered that the divine restriction of the void in front of it had completely exploded, and an extremely terrifying shockwave of the void's explosion swept out in all directions. Such destructive power was extremely terrifying. Even primordial sages might not be able to withstand it. If they were hit head-on, they would probably turn into ashes and die without a complete corpse. Run, hurry up and run. We can't stay here or we'll die without a doubt. Bastard, which bastard did this? Don't let me find you. Many of the primordial sages, and medial sages were so scared that their faces turned pale. They couldn't care less about the Khanate magic treasure creation pool inside. They just wanted to run for their lives. Their figures flickered, traveling through space-time in an attempt to avoid the void explosion. But how could they outrun the speed of the void divine restriction's explosion? Boom, in the blink of an eye, the void divine restriction in the distant space immediately exploded, producing a black mushroom cloud that spread out for tens of thousands of light years. It swept out in all directions, covering every inch of space. The primordial saints were the first to bear the brunt. They immediately circulated their world domains and the many defensive saint artifacts on them in an attempt to withstand the power of the void explosions. Bang bang bang. Instantly, numerous void god hexes shattered, and like the god-beating whip, the whip lashed out, tearing space and time apart. Hundreds, thousands of space-time rifts appeared off in the distance, seemingly capable of ripping apart anything and everything. All the restrictive powers exploded at this moment. In the face of such explosive power, the primordial sages could barely withstand it, but the primordial sages, medieval sages, and even near-ancient sages could not withstand it. They were immediately hit by the power and swept past. All of them let out shrill cries as they were heavily injured on the spot. Fortunately, they had been warned by the primordial sages. At the same time, they were relatively far away, so they were able to escape at the critical moment. Coupled with the fact that the restriction formation had been severely damaged over the years, and the core of the restriction formation, the creation pool, had been taken away, the power of the restriction formation had been reduced by more than 99%. There was no way to store large amounts of energy, or else all the sages would be annihilated in an instant, including the invincible sages. Even so, countless sages were heavily injured and coughed up blood on the spot. Some weaker sages, as well as the unlucky primordial sages, directly fainted. They floated in the void, unable to move. It was as if terrifying law scars had appeared on their bodies. The primordial sages, who bore the brunt of the impact, were also heavily injured. They were practically half dead, coughing up blood non-stop. At this moment, the spacetime within a radius of hundreds of thousands of light-years was severely damaged. Billions of spacetime rifts appeared in the spacetime in all directions, and explosions rang out everywhere. If one were to accidentally fall into one of these spacetime rifts, they would probably fall into the abyss of the spacetime rifts and be instantly obliterated by the power of spacetime, dying without a complete corpse. Look, the restriction formation over there has been opened. Go in now. The Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool, is over there. Haha, it really takes no effort to search for it even after traveling to the ends of the world. This is a blessing in disguise. I never thought that an explosion would actually be able to break the void divine restriction here. The heavens are really on my side. Perhaps this might not be a bad thing. The many primordial sages were overjoyed and excited when they saw this scene. They were originally cursing the earth-shattering explosion that had almost killed them. However, now that they saw it, they screamed in excitement. Based on their previous progress, it would have taken at least a few months, or even a few years, to be able to break the restriction formation here and obtain the opportunity to enter. Of course, this was also the most ideal progress. It was also possible that they would not be able to break the restriction formation even after spending decades. Now, however, all the void divine restrictions had been destroyed, and all the defensive restriction formation in this world had disappeared. This was equivalent to a tightly shut door opening for them, and there was nothing that could stop them anymore. Hurry, go in. The many primordial sages could not care about anything else. They dragged their heavily injured bodies and ignored the other sages who were on the verge of death. The most important thing now was to obtain the Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool. As long as they could obtain the Khanate magic treasure, they could make up for all their losses. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The primordial sages immediately rushed in. Indeed, there was no longer any obstruction in the world before them. They were overjoyed and advanced all the way to the deepest part of the world. Before long, they arrived at the core of the world, where the Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool, was located. Fuck, what's going on? Where is the Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool? Where did it go? Did it grow wings and fly away? One of the primordial sages was extremely fast and was the first to arrive. However, when he arrived, he was completely dumbfounded and broke down. This was because he was shocked to find that the Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool, had disappeared without a trace. The originally huge creation pool was now only a huge, barren pit with broken walls everywhere. Now, in this godforsaken place, there was not even a single strand of hair left, let alone the Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool. It had been plundered cleanly. Fupin Chinese. Chapter 25:19. Fuck, which bastard got here first and stole the Khanate magic treasure creation pool? Another primordial saint arrived, and when he saw this scene, he couldn't help but curse. He ran in excitedly and did everything he could. He didn't even care about the injured sages of his race. He just wanted to get his hands on the Khanate magic treasure creation pool. However, who would have thought that the creation pool would disappear without a trace as soon as it entered? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The other primordial sages arrived quickly as well. They were all fighting to be the first, afraid that the creation pool would be taken away by the other sages if they were one step behind. However, they were all dumbfounded when they arrived. The Khanate magic treasure creation pool had long disappeared. All that was left was a huge pit. Who was it? Did you guys do it? Did you secretly hide the creation pool? The group of primordial sages who arrived later glared at the primordial sages in front of them. They suspected that the primordial sages who had arrived earlier had succeeded in leaving behind such a huge pit. I didn't do it. I saw it when I arrived. The first primordial sage who arrived immediately complained. If he didn't refute, he might become the target of everyone. It would be fine if he had obtained the creation pool. However, he didn't get anything and was even beaten up by a group of primordial sages. He was even more wrong than Do-E. That's what the guy who stole the creation pool said. Do you think we'll believe you? That's right. One of you must have taken the creation pool. Otherwise, why would this place be empty? It's not impossible for us to believe you, but you have to leave behind all your spatial magic treasures and let us check them carefully. We'll only believe you if we're sure that you don't have the creation pool on you. The group of primordial sages shouted angrily and made their suggestions. What? The primordial sages' faces turned green. They didn't know how many of their trump cards were stored in their spatial magic treasures. How could they allow other sages to check them? If that happened, wouldn't their trump cards and many secrets be exposed? As primordial sages, how could they tolerate such a thing happening? However, they really hadn't obtained the Khanate magic treasure creation pool. They had been framed. What do you think? If he doesn't even dare to do such a thing, wouldn't he have a guilty conscience? As expected, the Khanate magic treasure fortune pool was snatched away by one of you. That's why you're hesitating here. Hand over the fortune pool immediately and I'll spare your lives. Many primordial sages were brimming with killing intent. In order to obtain the Khanate magic treasure, the fortune pool, they did not hesitate to fight. After all, such a Khanate magic treasure would be a great disaster for any race if it fell into their hands. Suddenly, the group of primordial saints was filled with a tense atmosphere of war, as if it would break out at any moment. Wait, there seems to be a line of words here. Suddenly, some primordial saints saw a line of words left on the ground. Moreover, it was written in the language of the dragon race. Many primordial saints immediately looked up. Written on the ground were these words: "The creation pool has been obtained. Thank you, seniors, for your help. I am extremely grateful." Written by Wu Wudi of the Dragon Clan. Look, the destiny pool really wasn't taken by us. It was taken by the dragon race. It was taken by the dragon race's saint, Wu Wudi. That bastard even left a message on it. One of the primordial saints cried out in surprise. He felt that his grievances had finally been cleansed. Do you think we're fucking idiots? What kind of saint would take the creation pool and leave his name behind? Are you afraid that he won't die a quick and tragic death? One of the primordial saints said disdainfully. He felt that this was a setup. That's right. It must have been left behind by some bastard who has a grudge against the dragon race. To be honest, if the dragon race's saint had taken the creation pool, he would definitely have made a fortune in silence. Why would he take the initiative to say it? Isn't that courting death? Another primordial dragon said. He also felt that the message was too ridiculous. It could not have been done by their dragon race's saint. What's fake is real and what's real is fake. Who knows what's going on? Perhaps the dragon race wanted to pass off the fake as the real one, so they left behind such words to confuse us and secretly obtain the Khanate magic treasure, the creation pool? A primordial phoenix sneered. Damn Phoenix, you can eat whatever you want but you can't say whatever you want. What evidence do you have to prove that the creation pool was taken by our dragon race's saint? Moreover, we are the first batch of primordial saints to enter. There are no other saints in this place. The primordial dragon shouted. If there were no other sages, then how did this line of words get left behind? It must have been left behind by the sages who came before us. Perhaps the explosion of this spatial world and the collapse of the restrictive spell formation was caused by the sages taking out the pool of fortune, causing a chain reaction. The primordial phoenix's eyes lit up as if he had guessed the truth. That's right, I do remember that there is a saint among the dragon race, Wu Wudi. He is extremely arrogant and uses his extremely powerful concealment abilities to rob people in the outer regions. He is extremely shameless. Who knows how many races have fallen to his treacherous hands? A primordial Qilin seemed to have thought of something. Our Qilin race has also been repeatedly persecuted by this Wu Wudi. Regardless of whether the creation pool was taken by him or not, this matter cannot be separated from him. What do you mean? What do you mean? If that's the case, then there is no room for negotiation. Do you want to start a war with the dragon race? The primordial dragon's eyes revealed a ferocious look. It could tell that these races were clearly afraid of the dragon race's growing strength. Now, they wanted to find an excuse to deal with the dragon race. Regardless of whether they had this reason or not, they would find a reasonable excuse. Hehe, you dragon tribe are the ones who are rude and unreasonable. Since you've obtained the fortune pool, you should hand it over so that all of us can share it. Otherwise, this matter won't end here. The fortune pool shouldn't be monopolized by the dragon tribe. Your dragon clan already has more than enough good stuff. More than a dozen primordial saints surrounded the primordial saints of the dragon race. If you want to incriminate someone, you can always find a pretext. Since you want to start a war with the dragon race, then come. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Not to mention that we did not obtain the creation pool. Even if we did obtain it, the dragon race can monopolize it if we want. No one will give us any face. The primordial dragons were not to be outdone. Although they were few in number, they did not fear the primordial saints of the other races. Boom. In an instant, the primordial saints began fighting, instantly shattering the void. Their world domains collided violently, shaking the heavens and earth. It was as if hundreds of thousands of volcanoes had erupted at the same time. Chapter 25-20. At this moment, Xiaoping was hiding in the distance, carefully watching the situation. Seeing this situation, Xiaoping was speechless. He originally wanted to leave his name to attract a wave of hatred and gain some points of hatred. Who would have thought that this would be self-defeating? These sages mistakenly thought that it was a frame-up. It was impossible for Wu Wudi to do it. Of course, there were some primordial sages who did not believe such a thing, but they used a good excuse to start a war with the primordial sages of the dragon race. In any case, his message gave the group of primordial sages an excuse to fight to the death with each other. It was like a fuse that completely ignited the war. Forget it, I'd better run away quickly. Xiaoping felt a little guilty. After fanning the flames, the battle of these primordial sages had nothing to do with him anymore. He could not get involved in the battle of these primordial sages now. Whoosh! His figure flashed and he left the spatial world, leaving these primordial sages to fight. There are so many severely injured sages? As soon as Xiaoping left the spatial world, his divine sense instantly covered a radius of tens of thousands of light years. He discovered that the explosion of the restriction array just now had indeed produced immeasurable destructive power. In the end, this destructive power not only severely injured the primordial sages, but also the sages below the primordial sages were in an extremely miserable state. Even if they could survive, they were seriously injured and could not move for a short period of time. At this moment, this area of the void was filled with countless spacetime cracks. The sages who were heavily injured floated in the void like corpses, quietly circulating the magic power in their bodies in an attempt to heal their injuries. However, their injuries were too serious and could not be healed in a short period of time. This is a good opportunity. Seeing this situation, Xiaoping's eyes lit up. There were so many sages on the verge of death in this place, and they were undoubtedly good laborers. If he took this opportunity to capture all these sages, he would definitely be able to make a fortune. Moreover, this was indeed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After all, under normal circumstances, how could he encounter these ancient and medieval sages who were so weak and defenseless? The World Tree. At the thought of this, Xiaoping immediately communicated with the World Tree. In the blink of an eye, a phantom of the World Tree appeared above his head. It stretched across the depths of the void and merged into all directions, covering a radius of tens of thousands of light years. Crash! Roots of the World Tree emerged silently from the depths of the void and from all directions. They came to the badly wounded and dying saints in an instant. What is this? At this moment, an ancient Baifeng was working hard to circulate the magic power in its body. It took out some precious healing pills and was planning to quickly heal its injuries. But suddenly, a root of the World Tree approached the Baifeng's head and poked its shoulder in a very human-like manner. It sensed something strange and turned around, only to see the roots of the World Tree in front of it. Before it could discover anything, the World Tree's roots seemed to have turned into a large brick and smashed it hard on its forehead. With a dong, the ancient Baifeng was stunned. It saw stars and its entire head was in a mess. It was knocked unconscious, foaming at the mouth. In the next second, its huge body was pulled into the world of the classic of mountains and seas by the World Tree. There seems to be a treasure here? An ancient Xianglu was healing himself, and was immediately attracted by a delicious healing pill. It seemed to be plump and appeared not far away from him. This pill was extremely beneficial to his wounds. It did not think of anything and immediately pounced over, like a hungry dog pouncing on its prey. It did not expect this to be a trap. With a dong, dozens of the World Tree descended. It was as if it had been covered by a sack and it was beaten violently on the spot. Even though the ancient Xianglu had 9 heads, it was still beaten until it was dizzy. It saw stars and immediately fainted. No, save me, Wu. An ancient Zhujian was naturally alert and very sensitive to the power of space. It seemed to have noticed something long ago and sensed the roots of the World Tree sweeping over. But its body was too weak. The terrifying power of the explosion of the Void God's seal had severely injured its lungs and weakened its soul. It had almost no strength left in its body. It had only shouted half a sentence before its mouth was immediately blocked by the roots of the World Tree, making it cry out loudly. It could not say anything else. Next, its entire body was instantly tied up like a mummy. It kept struggling but could not break free. Just like that, it was pulled into the darkness. Monster, there's a monster here. Everyone be careful. What is it? Could it be that the explosion of the space world just now released some terrifying monster? Hurry up and run. We can't stay here or we'll die for sure. Run. How can we run? We can't move at all now. Some saints discovered the abnormality of this place and could not help but cry out. They were very terrified. They thought that something strange had happened here. No matter what, this was the eternal light realm, the abode of a god. It was not strange at all if something terrifying had been left behind. But even if they knew this, it was useless. The world tree was still moving unscrupulously in the depths of the void. The surrounding 10,000 light years had become its hunting ground. Dong, dong, dong. Root after root blasted out like the most brilliant hunter. It did not attack, but once it attacked, it would be a sure kill. In addition, these saints were all seriously injured. How could they resist the world tree at its peak? Whoosh! In just a few breaths, hundreds of saints were captured and pulled into the depths of the darkness. Moreover, they were at least in the Middle Ancient realm and above. Most of them were primordial saints. Yeah, it seems like we've been discovered by the primordial saints. Hurry up and run. Xia Ping was very excited as he wantonly captured these divine beasts. However, he had caused too much of a commotion. Even the primordial saints who were fighting to the death seemed to have sensed some abnormalities in the outside world. Some primordial saints immediately wanted to leave and check out the situation outside. They immediately became vigilant and felt that they had gone too far. They had to stop while they were ahead. This time, they had captured at least hundreds of Middle Ancient and primordial saints from various divine beast races. This was already a great harvest. They could not continue like this, or else those primordial saints would definitely see through them. Swoosh. Without another word, Xia Ping summoned the world tree back. His figure flickered and merged into the depths of the void. He teleported again and again, traveling hundreds of thousands or millions of light years away. No matter how powerful those primordial saints were, they would not be able to catch up with such speed. Chapter 25-21. Several days later. Xia Ping hid on a barren planet in the Eternal Light Realm, temporarily hiding in the world of the classic of mountains and seas. As for how the primordial sages would resolve the remaining conflicts, it had nothing to do with him. In any case, he had already obtained the greatest benefit, so naturally he would not care about anything else. Alright, let's try merging the creation pool into the classic of mountains and seas. At this moment, he sat cross-legged on the ground and formed a seal with his hands, communicating with the Khanate magic treasure creation pool. He merged it into the world of the classic of mountains and seas and placed it in the 33rd layer of heaven. Whoosh! In an instant, the entire world of the classic of mountains and seas shook, and a huge amount of creation chi surged out from the depths of the creation pool. With the bottom of the creation pool as the center, clouds of white mist surged out, extending from the 33rd layer of heaven as if they were free. One layer after another, seeping into every corner of the world. In reality, the Khanate magic treasure creation pool with a master controlling it was completely different from one without. The amount of creation chi refined was at least 10 times more than that. Moreover, this was because Xia Ping was only a Middle Ancient Realm saint, unable to fully unleash the power of the creation pool. If he had advanced to the God realm, he would have been able to instantly cover every corner of the classic of mountains and seas with the creation chi that surged out from the creation pool. Oh my god, this is creation chi. It's really amazing. Seeing this scene, the green ox could not help but cry out. It was extremely excited, and its eyes shone with excitement. It discovered that after merging with the Khanate magic treasure creation pool, the classic of mountains and seas seemed to have undergone a fundamental change. This supreme scripture had been integrated with a lot of creation chi. Vaguely, every page seemed to have been covered in dense patterns of the laws of the universe. It seemed to contain a lot of creation chi and was full of vitality. Although the world of the classic of mountains and seas was huge and contained rich origin energy, it always lacked a bit of vitality and a bit of creation chi. However, it was different now. After merging with the Khanate magic treasure creation pool, the classic of mountains and seas seemed to have made up for this flaw, causing the classic of mountains and seas to contain endless creation chi and be filled with vitality. The classic of mountains and seas has undergone a huge change. The senses of Xia Ping's soul were also immersed in every corner of the supreme quality saint artifact. He had reached the level of becoming one with the artifact, so he could sense every single change in the world of the scripture of mountains and seas. The first was the 33 heavens of the world of the classic of mountains and seas. The area of each heaven was rapidly and violently expanding. It seemed to be expanding into the depths of the void, and the area of the space inside had doubled. The earth became thicker and denser, the rivers became wider and denser, the mountains became taller and taller, reaching into the clouds, and the valleys became extremely deep and immeasurable. Even the plants that lived in the various worlds were growing at a crazy rate. Trees that were originally 200 to 300 meters tall were now thousands of meters tall. Now, every single tree was as majestic as a small hill, huge and imposing. The weeds were also extremely dense, enough to submerge the bodies of giant beasts. This was no longer a grassland but a sea of grasslands. It was as if every weed had become as thick as a small tree, full of vitality. Even some plants and animals that originally did not have intelligence seemed to have been nourished by the creation chi, and seemed to have been muddle-headedly evolved and gained intelligence. There was no need to mention some intelligent creatures that knew how to cultivate. They felt that their cultivation speed had increased by several times, and it seemed as if it was easier for them to break through. As expected, obtaining the creation pool was the right choice. If it continues to evolve, the classic of mountains and seas might really become a divine artifact one day. The green ox could not help but become extremely excited. It could sense that the classic of mountains and seas was originally only at the level of a primary supreme quality saint artifact. However, after fusing with the creation pool, it was rapidly evolving, as if it was rapidly evolving to the level of a peak supreme quality saint artifact. In the entire world of the 33 heavens, every page of the classic of mountains and seas had become extremely tough and indestructible. If the invincible saints had the chance to shatter the spatial barrier of the world of the classic of mountains and seas before, then after fusing with the creation pool, the classic of mountains and seas could no longer be shattered. There was no way to even break through it. Its toughness was probably even slightly stronger than the ancient heavenly dragon talisman. It already possessed a sliver of the characteristics of an immortal divine artifact. No matter what, it was indestructible. It feels like I'm about to break through. Xiaoping's heart stirred. After he refined the pool of good fortune, a huge amount of good fortune chi surged into his limbs and bones. It surged into his 9 violet kingdom spaces and filled every corner of his violet kingdom spaces. After advancing to the early stage of the ancient middle realm, his purple mansion spaces had become unbelievably huge. Even ancient saints might not be able to compare to them, let alone he had 9 of them. Due to this, it became increasingly difficult for him to cultivate. Every time he broke through, he would need to devour a large amount of origin energy of the universe. It would also take a lot of time. However, after obtaining the massive amount of creation chi from the creation pool, he suddenly saved countless years of effort in condensing his dermic powers. It was as if the conditions were right and success was only a matter of course. Dong. Xiaoping's body immediately shook. A certain bottleneck in the depths of his sea of consciousness was broken by the massive amount of energy from the creation chi. He instantly broke through that obstacle. The middle stage of the ancient middle realm. I've finally broken through. He felt that his dermic powers had increased by another level. His 9 purple mansion spaces continued to expand by a third, and a large amount of energy surged into them. In fact, it was not only the 9 purple mansion spaces in his body that had expanded. Even the space cells in his body had expanded by a third. With so many space cells expanding at the same time, Rong Nai's dermic powers had become even more terrifying. Although it was only a small breakthrough, the increase in his combat power had also reached an extremely shocking level. The more he cultivated, the more obvious the increase in his combat power would be with each small breakthrough. My divine consciousness has also become stronger. After Xiaoping sensed that his dermic powers had increased, it seemed like the power of his divine consciousness had also improved greatly. Originally he could only expand it to 10,000 light-years, but now it could cover a radius of 20,000 light-years. It could be said that the power of his divine consciousness had doubled. The time law fragments have also increased. He squinted his eyes. After advancing to the intermediate stage of the ancient middle realm, pieces of time law fragments had also rapidly condensed in his body and flowed into the depths of his sea of consciousness. It seemed like 1/3 of his time law fragments had already been condensed. If he waited until he condensed 3,000 time law fragments in the depths of his sea of consciousness and perfected the time law, he would then be able to reach the peak of the ancient middle realm. He would then have a chance to comprehend the creation law and condense the creation chi. Chapter 25-22. At the same time, in the world of the classic of mountains and seas, such a drastic and rapid change was naturally known by the many races that lived in this world. The first to feel it the most were the tree people. They knew best just how earth-shattering the change in the classic of mountains and seas was. My God, as expected of the Lord God. He actually made this world evolve again. How long has it been? An elder of the Treant clan was extremely excited. He could feel that every space was filled with rich fortune chi, which was a great benefit to the growth of every Treant. Praise the Lord God. This world is simply the holy land of cultivation for our Treant clan. I can feel that if I continue to cultivate in this world, it won't take long for me to truly reach the immortal realm. An ancient elder of the Treant clan seemed to have sensed the mysterious will, and his body emitted wisps of immortal realm aura. To be honest, he had lived for 5 million years. Few creatures below the immortal realm were older than him. At first, he thought that he would never have the chance to reach the immortal realm. However, with Xiaoping's help, living in such a holy land of cultivation had given him an opportunity to break through. In particular, they could feel the mysterious aura of the world tree. It was as if they were looking at a wordless heavenly book, which recorded the supreme great Tao and saw the ultimate path of cultivation. Because of this, they could cultivate by leaps and bounds without any hindrance. In fact, this was the benefit of cultivating next to the world tree. Even a pig could become a demon. Haha, it seems that our Treant clan will soon have dozens more immortal realm Treants. This will greatly increase the strength of our Treant clan. This will also bring some help to the Lord God. Many Treant clans shouted excitedly. Originally, tens of thousands of elders of the Treant clan had been stuck at the peak of the lightning calamity, unable to break through. However, with this opportunity they could easily reach the immortal realm. Even if only a small portion of them could reach the immortal realm, the strength of the Treant clan would still greatly increase. Besides the Treant clan, the members of the illusion race who had been captured by Xiaoping had also sensed this change. Especially the patriarch of the Lawrence clan, who was currently in a state of recovery, Sophia, who was also the only near-ancient saint of the illusion race. She naturally sensed this change. This artifact has actually evolved into a peerless sacred artifact, and even shows signs of evolving into a divine artifact. What kind of opportunity is this? What has this human experienced during this time? Sophia was a bit confused. She had originally been recovering from her injuries in the world of the classic of mountains and seas. However, not too much time had passed before the orb of mountains and seas, which had only been a mid-grade saint artifact, transformed into a peerless saint artifact, the classic of mountains and seas. Xiaoping, who was originally just an undying sage, had now advanced to the middle-aged sage level. He had comprehended the laws of time and grasped the power of the space-time domain. Just this kind of power alone could easily kill a near-ancient saint like her in seconds. To be honest, she was a little unwilling to lose to Xiaoping before. But now there was no more unwillingness. If she made Xiaoping unhappy, she was afraid that the only power of the illusion race would disappear from this universe. Although the illusory race used to be considered a large race, they had declined. A fallen phoenix was no better than a chicken. Moreover, in the universe, it wasn't shameful for a weak race to submit to a strong race. In fact, there were countless weak races that couldn't find such a backer even if they wanted to. She could only hide her little thoughts and work for Xiaoping loyally in the future. That's good too. The stronger our master is, the more benefits our illusion tribe will receive. Sophia's beautiful eyes sparkled. If Xiaoping could advance to the invincible saint realm and become one of the top patriarchs of the human race, then the status of the illusion race would naturally rise. They might even return to the view of many races in the universe. Of course, as the black hole bugs with the sharpest senses towards spatial energy, they were well aware of the rapid and intense changes in the classic of mountains and seas world. As expected, following Master was the right choice. With Master by his side, King's evolution speed is truly beyond imagination. According to this speed, King will reach the immortal realm very soon and recreate the glory of our black hole worm race. Many black hole worms were so excited. Their divine consciousnesses intertwined with each other and constantly communicated with each other. They could feel that the black hole worm race had been growing continuously. In fact, thanks to the power of the black hole worm king, even the power it emitted unconsciously was enough to greatly increase the reproduction rate of the black hole worm race. During this time they rapidly produced batches of black hole worm eggs. Moreover, because these eggs didn't have any natural enemies and the environment was excellent, their survival rate was as high as 80%. It should be noted that the survival rate of the black hole worm eggs was only 10%. Only 1 egg out of 10 eggs would survive. That was why the black hole worm race was so small. However, the survival rate had increased to 80%. One could imagine that the population of the black hole worm race would soon explode and usher in a baby wave of black hole worms. Wait, something's not right. It's not that he'll reach the immortal realm soon. King seems to be about to reach the immortal realm. A black hole worm elder seemed to have sensed something and couldn't help but shout. What? Impossible. How long has it been since King was born? How can his growth speed be so fast? He had just reached the Thunder Tribulation realm, and now he's about to reach the Immortal realm? Nothing is impossible. It follows Master and obtains endless treasures. It's natural that its evolution speed is fast. Of course, King's evolution speed is still beyond our imagination. I wonder if King can pass the Thunder Tribulation? No problem. King's talent is beyond imagination. Passing the Thunder Tribulation is a piece of cake. Many black hole worms couldn't restrain their excitement because the rise and fall of the black hole worm race depended on King alone. If King could evolve to the Immortal realm, they could also evolve to the Immortal realm quickly. They were practically one entity. At this moment, in a room of the Scripture of Mountains and Seas 33 levels. Because it was a school holiday, the black hole worm king, Chong Xiaoqian, was playing games in her room for 7 days and 7 nights. Her 2 panda eyes were bulging and she looked like she could die at any moment. Boom! At this moment, the Scripture of Mountains and Seas underwent a world-shaking change. A huge amount of fortune energy surged in and instantly entered Chong Xiaoqian's body, entering her limbs and bones. It was as if she had been injected with chicken blood, like a withered tree coming back to life. This made Chong Xiaoqian feel refreshed. She seemed to have reached an unprecedented peak. With a boom, Chong Xiaoqian felt the magic power in her body reaching its peak. She broke through immediately, and traces of immortal aura surged out from the depths of her body. What? I broke through and am about to reach the Immortal realm? The black hole worm king Chong Xiaoqian was dumbfounded. She sensed many mysterious immortal changes in her body. She had been playing games and didn't really cultivate. But now she was about to break through to the Immortal realm. She was leveling up while lying down. Third Master. Chapter 25-23. Haha, although I don't know what's going on, I'm indeed a prodigy, the #1 super genius beauty in the universe. I can reach the Immortal realm just by lying down. Black hole worm king Chong Xiaoqian placed her hands on her hips and laughed. She was very proud, as if she had been injected with chicken blood. She had worked hard for 7 days and 7 nights, but now she had recovered. She felt extremely comfortable in her heart. Because in her inherited memories, it was not easy for the black hole worm king to reach the Immortal realm. It had to go through 81 trials to have a chance. However, she had not even grown up yet. She was about to reach the Immortal realm after playing games all night and working hard all the time. If she was not the strongest prodigy in the history of the black hole worm race, then who was? Without a doubt, if she used 1/10,000th of her talent, she could become the strongest sage and the strongest king in history at any moment. However, before she could finish laughing, a lightning bolt fell from the sky and struck toward her head, directly piercing through the ceiling. Dong. The lightning bolt immediately turned Chong Xiaoqian into a piece of charcoal. She was dumbfounded. Even the crown on her head fell off. Oh no, I almost forgot that I have to pass the lightning tribulation to reach the Immortal realm. I think I have to be struck by lightning. Chong Xiaoqian immediately recalled this very serious matter. It seemed that reaching the Immortal realm was not a good thing. Tribulation clouds covered thousands of kilometers in the sky. Tens of thousands of terrifying lightning tribulation descended and struck Chong Xiaoqian's body mercilessly. Oh my God. Chong Xiaoqian was scared out of her wits. She was trash in nature. She was born to be a queen who had everything she needed. She had never seen such a fierce danger before. She immediately covered her head and fled. Dong, dong. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts struck down in an instant. Each of them was extremely terrifying and could easily kill a cultivator at the peak of the lightning tribulation. This was the black hole worm king's lightning tribulation. Naturally, it was much more powerful than ordinary people. Chong Xiaoqian rolled lazily on the ground as if she was using her spatial innate talent. Her speed was extremely fast, and every time the lightning tribulation descended, she would be able to dodge it just in time. It had to be said that although she was very useless, her ability to escape was top-notch in the universe. Relying on her powerful spatial talent and extremely strong survival instincts, her dodging ability had almost reached the acme of perfection. But this way the whole house was smashed to pieces by the lightning and wreckage was everywhere. She was frightened by such a scene and immediately cried out, "Help, Regent, help me, there's lightning going to strike me. If you don't save me, I'll be struck to death by lightning. Someone come and save me." Chong Xiaoqian couldn't care less about her dignity as a king. She hurriedly sought Xiaoping's help and shouted. But this was her own lightning tribulation. Xiaoping would not help her. The other black hole insects naturally wouldn't appear. They didn't dare to approach the center of the lightning tribulation. After shouting for a long time, no one came to help. Immediately, Tan Menglu was enraged. You treacherous officials! When this king was in danger, none of you came to save me. When I transcend the lightning tribulation, I will fire all of you. Look at you bastards. Do you want to see this king get struck to death by lightning so that you can take the opportunity to take over? Damn it, the imperial court is full of treacherous officials. Not a single one of them is good. She screamed and dodged continuously. She was so angry that smoke was coming out of her 7 orifices. But in this situation, she could only rely on herself. She couldn't rely on others. Chem? Isn't this big sister Menglu? What's wrong? Are you also transcending tribulation? Chong Xiaoqian was forced to flee from the lightning tribulation. Soon she arrived at her neighbor Tan Menglu's house. But she soon discovered that Tan Menglu was also transcending tribulation. It seemed like she had broken through to the sempiternal realm at the same time as her. That's right, what a coincidence. Tan Menglu rubbed her eyes as if she had just woken up. She had a confused look on her face. I don't know what's going on either. Last night, after almost a month of hard work, I finally defeated the last boss. After defeating it, I had a good sleep. Who would have thought that when I woke up the next day I would be advancing to the immortal realm? Originally, I didn't pay much attention to it. But who would have thought that a dozen bolts of lightning would strike down from the sky, forcibly waking me up? Even my house was destroyed. This wretched heavens, they don't even let me sleep in. At this point, she gritted her teeth in anger. Clearly, she was still angry when she woke up. Chong Xiaoqian, to be honest, she was in awe of the Tao Tai race's thick skin. After being struck by lightning so many times, it was like an itch to her. Furthermore, it was only enough to wake her up. Was there any justice in this world? Also, what was going on with breaking through to the immortal realm while sleeping? Could it be that there were peerless geniuses in this universe that could compare to her? She was a little indignant. With a boom, another bolt of lightning struck down, accurately striking her head. Instantly, her entire body went numb, and the ahog on her head stood on end. She screamed in pain. Save me, big sister Menglu, lightning is going to strike me. Chong Xiaoqian instantly rushed up and hugged Tan Menglu's thigh. Her eyes were filled with tears. Is this the lightning tribulation? It looks delicious. Tan Menglu rubbed her deflated stomach. She felt that after her breakthrough, her appetite had expanded by 10 times. It was as if she was feeling an unprecedented hunger. She raised her head and looked at the bolts of lightning descending from the sky. In her eyes they were like delicacies. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, she opened her mouth wide and formed a huge black hole. All the lightning bolts were swallowed by her in a single gulp. And it's strawberry-flavored. Tan Menglu burped. She seemed to feel that the taste was pretty good. This Chong Xiaoqian was dumbfounded. She didn't expect this at all. Were the Tao Tai race all monsters? It was fine if they ate anything else. But now they even ate the lightning tribulation. Was there any justice in this world? It seemed like the lightning tribulation in the sky was completely enraged by Tan Menglu. More and more terrifying lightning tribulation energy gathered together and fell from the sky crazily. Again. Great, seems like I can have a full meal today. I'll eat. However, Tan Menglu was even more excited. She was still worried that she didn't have a chance to have a big meal. She immediately leaped into the sky. Before those lightning bolts descended, she bit them. With a crunching sound, she ate the lightning tribulation as if she was biting a biscuit. Chong Xiaoqian was speechless. It seemed like this Tan Menglu's appetite was too big. Even her own lightning tribulation was targeted by Tan Menglu. It directly rushed into the tribulation clouds and even started to swallow the tribulation clouds. She felt that when Tan Menglu swallowed the tribulation clouds, it was as easy as eating cotton. Third Sect Master. Chapter 25-24. Half a day later. Both Tan Menglu and Chong Xiaoqian's lightning tribulations had disappeared, and they had successfully advanced to the immortal realm. However, most of the lightning tribulation's power had been devoured by Tan Menglu, while Chong Xiaoqian had not absorbed much of the lightning tribulation's power. She had advanced naturally. It was as if she had been brought along by Tan Menglu. After devouring a large amount of lightning tribulation's power, even though Tan Menglu was an immortal Tao Tai, her stomach was bloated by the abundant energy. She almost collapsed on the ground, unable to move. After advancing to the immortal realm, her body had also undergone some changes. First, it was her height. Tan Menglu had finally grown a little, and her height had increased by 2 centimeters. The space in her stomach had also become larger, as if it had formed a dimensional stomach, allowing her to swallow more things. If she had swallowed some special minerals in the universe before, perhaps Tan Menglu would not have been able to digest them. However, things were different now. Her body's digestive power was more than 100 times stronger. Secondly, it was the power within her body. Every part of her body was filled with immortal substance, causing her soul to undergo a huge transformation. Her strength was more than 10 times stronger than before. It could be said that she could play games throughout the night for longer periods of time. Be it in terms of strength, speed, soul, or the power of her god's ability, Tan Menglu had improved by several levels. She was now a true Taotai. It was as if the power of the divine beast Taotai had been fully displayed in her body. At the same time, circles of densely packed void runes appeared on her skin. They seemed to be devouring runes, and any power that entered her body would be devoured almost completely. There was also Chong Xiaoqian. As the Black Hole Worm King, after advancing to the immortal realm, her power had also undergone a qualitative change. The crown on her little head also seemed to have dense immortal patterns, as if it possessed even more powerful space power. Even her life level had risen by a large margin. A large number of space law patterns had also appeared in the depths of her body. It was as if the Black Hole Worm's space talent had been fully displayed. Her every move seemed to resonate with the fluctuations of space. In the past, she still needed to circulate the god's ability within her body to communicate with the void. However, it was different now. With a single thought, she could instantly escape into the void. Moreover, she could easily open up many spatial tunnels and stabilize them. Of course, as the Black Hole Worm King, the most important thing was to control the power of the entire race. When her power and life rating increased, the other black hole worms also felt the earth-shattering changes. They could feel their evolution speed increasing. The black hole worms, who were at the peak of lightning tribulation, could feel that they were about to break through to the immortal realm. Thanks to Chong Xiaoqian's assistance, the power of the entire black hole worm race had increased by leaps and bounds. At the same time, the life force of each black hole worm had become more tenacious. They could also give birth to many black hole worm eggs. A few days later, Chong Xiaoqian and Tan Menglu, who had completely stabilized their sempiternal realm cultivation, returned to school once more. This time they came with their heads held high. It was as if they were afraid that others would not know that they had advanced to the immortal realm. As expected, such a smug look immediately attracted the attention of many young girls and dragon whelps. How is this possible? Aren't you two losers who only know how to play games? How did he become an immortal so quickly? Seeing that Chong Xiaoqian and Tan Menglu had advanced to the immortal realm, Fate Dragon Betty's eyes widened in disbelief. Even though they were special dragons with outstanding talent, it did not mean that they would become immortal dragons for sure. There was still a certain chance that they would be trapped in the lightning tribulation realm, unable to advance for the rest of their lives. In her opinion, Chong Xiaoqian and Tan Menglu were just losers waiting to die. They had no future in this life. However, she did not expect that these two would suddenly change their fate and advance to the immortal realm. This was completely beyond the imagination of Fate Dragon Betty and the other dragon whelps. Hee hee. Chong Xiaoqian chuckled and placed her hands on her hips. How can you mortals imagine my talent? I can surpass everyone just by playing games and skipping classes every day. Look at you top students. You study day and night. You get 100 points in every exam. But in the end, you only have this little bit of cultivation. Her confidence had swelled to the extreme. She felt that she could already look down on this group of students. Don't listen to her. Tan Menglu jumped out and said loudly, actually, we cultivate very hard too. Don't be fooled by the fact that we play games every day. It's actually a way of cultivation. It's just that ordinary people don't understand it and mistakenly think that we've fallen. In fact, we train in another way. There's such a thing? Playing games is also a way of cultivation? The dragon whelps were dumbfounded. Of course. Tan Menglu chuckled and put her hands behind her back. Do you think it's that easy to play games every day? It consumes all of your mental strength and energy. Every time you fight a boss, you don't sleep for days and nights. You don't even have time to eat. Which one of you can understand the feeling of enduring hunger to clear the instance dungeon? Which one of you can understand the frustration of being killed by the boss's ultimate skill when you're almost at the last drop of the boss's HP? Which one of you can understand the anger of being killed by a tycoon player after working hard for 3 days and 3 nights and finally getting an exquisite equipment? I know all of these feelings. This is actually equivalent to a type of extreme training. From being energetic to being exhausted, then back to being energetic again. This cycle repeats day and night. You have to experience all kinds of life, happiness, depression, despair, excitement. Moreover, this is not just for a day or two. You have to do this one thing day and night. Don't be fooled by the fact that it's an ordinary thing, but if you persist in doing it, it'll be a big deal. Therefore, it's because of this extreme training that our cultivation base can improve rapidly. Perhaps you think that it's luck, but to us, it's a natural outcome. Where there's effort, there'll be rewards. If you want to be famous in front of others, you have to suffer behind them. Everything that we have now is the result of our hard work. She stood there with her hands behind her back, her face full of emotion. She was extremely emotional, as if she was recalling the past, recalling bitterness and sweetness. Chong Xiaoqian was dumbfounded when she heard this. She did not expect herself to be such an awesome existence. Unknowingly, she had done something so incredible. Truth be told, even the Dragon of Destiny Betty was a little stunned and speechless. Why don't I feel that it's hard at all? Chong Xiaoqian was dumbfounded and could not help but ask. It's right that it's not hard. You can ask the top students in class. Which one of them thinks that learning is hard? They'll only feel happier the more they learn. Learning hard is just the feeling of being a slacker. Tan Menglu revealed a look of a master. By the same logic, we integrate cultivation into entertainment and make it feel like we're playing a game. Unknowingly, we'll forget about the hardships of cultivation. At this time, we've already reached a state where we forget about everything else. We can enjoy life and cultivate at the same time. We've reached a supreme state where both don't delay each other. The group of dragon whelps and young girls were filled with admiration. Third leader. Chapter 25-25. Listening to you is better than studying for 10 years. Slow Dragon Whales had a look of worship and said, I was wrong, Master Menglu. I didn't expect you to have such a high level of thought. I'm sorry for my previous ignorance. I actually thought you were trash and hopeless. You only know how to play games all day, skip classes every day, and don't do homework. You're a negative example. Even the teachers want us to see you as a disgrace. But today, I didn't expect me to be the hopeless one. I greatly underestimated Master Menglu's thinking and cultivation, and I was judging dragons through colored glasses. I really had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Everyone has wronged you. It addressed Tan Menglu as a master. You're too kind. It's fine. Dragons are helpless after all. It's a good thing to learn from one's mistakes. A prodigal who repents is more valuable than gold. Tan Menglu stood with her hands behind her back, looking magnanimous. She did not care about how others looked down on her and the insults from those who did not know the truth. After all, a wise person was always alone and not understood by others. As the saying went, the amount of mockery and gossip she received back then was the same amount of flowers and praises she received today. Master Menglu, is it wrong for us to study hard? We're so serious, so hardworking, going to class on time every day and getting excellent grades in every exam. Is this the wrong path? Should I follow you to play games with you? A dragon whelp asked. No, it's not wrong. Actually, you're right, I'm right, everyone is right. Tan Menglu stood with her hands behind her back. There are 3,000 paths in the universe and the end of each path is the same. This is the so-called different paths lead to the same destination. How can you say that I'm right and you're wrong? Is it really that important to be right and wrong? As expected of Master Menglu. Her words are so philosophical and profound. The dragon whelps were all impressed. Even fake Dragon Betty was a little stunned. She fell into deep thought and began to doubt herself. Master Menglu, Grandpa Green Cow plans to modify this world and build many grand palaces. The place we used to live in is going to be demolished, so we're getting some compensation. Gluttonous Austin asked, but I don't know how to spend such a large sum of money. Should we buy a house near the city center or use it for something else? Hee, what house? Think about it carefully. Isn't buying a house the same as renting a house the same as living in it? In the future, houses will be worthless, even less valuable than garlic. Tan Menglu waved her hand. Really? Houses will be worth less than garlic in the future? The group of dragon whelps was stunned. Of course. Think about it seriously. This world is so big. You can develop it casually and it will be a huge piece of land. It will be desolate and uninhabited. In the future there will be more houses than people, you know? Tan Menglu said in disdain, so instead of buying a house, why don't you spend money to play games? What's a mere house? Can it make you happy? Only by spending money to play games can you become stronger. Master Menglu, I understand. It seems like I shouldn't buy a house. It's better to rent one. I'll play games with you in the future. The group of dragon whelps were convinced. You are worth teaching. Tan Menglu was very satisfied. She expressed that she had gained another group of believers. Instead of playing games or spending money, he actually wanted to buy a house. What a joke. What was a house? Was it edible? Are you serious? Xiaojin, do you think Master Menglu is right? A young girl from the Rabbit Ear clan looked at Xiaojin and asked curiously. I'm not very sure, but I have a way that satisfies both sides. Why don't we buy 100 houses first and then spend a few $100 million to play games? Goldie blinked and gave him a solution. Hearing this, the young girl's mouth twitched. She was speechless. It seemed like they had asked the wrong person. They should not have asked the super tycoon Xiaojin this question. They were just asking for trouble. Everyone, don't listen to this guy. What cultivation is he talking about by playing games? It's pure nonsense. Also, don't sell houses to spend money to play games. You'll regret it for the rest of your life. Fate Dragon Betty could not stand it anymore. She immediately stopped these ridiculous actions from spreading. Betty, what are you talking about? How can you say that about Master Menglu? That's right. Master Menglu is explaining the path to success to us out of goodwill. You're the only one causing trouble here. That's right. Betty, you really don't fit in with the group. Master Menglu is just giving us a clear path. We don't have to do this. It's up to us whether we do it or not. That's right. You still dare to say that Master Menglu is talking nonsense. Master Menglu is now an immortal Tao Tai. What about you? Who are you? How can you say such things in such a loud voice? You're not even an immortal, yet you dare to question Master Menglu? You're too shameless. Everyone looked at Betty in disdain. They felt that Fate Dragon Betty's words were too much. Maybe she was jealous of Menglu's achievements, which was why she was pouring cold water on her. What? Hearing these words, Fate Dragon Betty went crazy. She was trying to persuade these bastards out of goodwill, but now they were saying that she was wrong. Was there any justice in this world? She wanted to retort, but Tan Menglu was now an immortal Tao Tai. She was successful. Whatever she said was right. Right now she was nothing. Whatever she said would be wrong. Forget it, forget it. Betty was just being nice. There's no need to say that. At this moment, Tan Menglu waved her hand with a magnanimous look on her face. In fact, this universe is very big and can accommodate two different opinions. She has her own ideas and we can naturally have our own ideas as well. As for which is correct, we will soon find out in the future. Of course, I don't dare to say that I'm right. But as an immortal Tao Tai, my words carry a lot of weight. As expected of Master Menglu. Look at her heart, look at her temper, and look at Betty's arrogant face. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to endure it. Otherwise, how could Master Menglu reach immortal? Her mental state must be very high. Seems like Master Menglu is more reliable. The group was full of admiration. Hearing these words, Fate Dragon Betty went even crazier. She wasn't convinced. Alright, don't mind these small things. I'm thinking of going to a dungeon. Let's form a team. You guys come together. Tan Menglu was satisfied. She could finally trick this group of laborers to farm monsters for her. Chong Xiaoqian was puzzled. Strange. She wasn't an immortal black hole bug. Shouldn't she be shining brightly? Why didn't anyone care about her? Was her king's prestige not enough? She couldn't figure it out. She sank into deep thought. Third Master. Chapter 25-26. At this moment, on the other side, Classic of Mountains and Seas World, Level 12 World, the Shangliu, Pishio, Qilin, Zhujian, Bifang, Phoenix, Xuanwu, and many other mythical beasts that Xiaoping had captured were all locked up in one of the levels. Naturally, Black Dragon Pasta and the other colossal dragons that had been captured here saw this as well. In reality, the number of mythical beasts that had been captured over the past few days was simply uncountable. They were already getting a little numb. Holy fuck. Just where in the world did this human capture so many mythical beasts? Don't tell me that there aren't any saints around to deal with the disappearance of so many mythical beasts? When a middle ancient dragon that had been captured caught sight of this, he was absolutely dumbfounded. He had not expected that this human Xiaoping would be able to capture so many mythical beasts over the past few days. And they weren't just ordinary mythical beasts either. They were all at least of sempiternal state. Near ancient state was considered normal, and middle ancient state was considered elite. Recently, he had even captured immemorial ancient state mythical beasts. Something as such had them scared out of their wits. After all, those were immemorial ancient state mythical beasts. Even among the various races, they could be considered as the elites of the elites. They were existences that could turn into elders with authority over a region. But now that this lad had captured dozens of immemorial ancient state mythical beasts, they could not imagine how infuriated the elders outside would be if they were to find out about this. There's no need to ask. There's definitely no saints around. Otherwise this human wouldn't be so brazen. That's right. If he had truly angered an invincible saint, no matter how many lives this human has, it wouldn't be enough. That's right. I reckon that this human must have used some sort of special method to cover up this matter so easily even after capturing so many mythical beasts. Who knows, even the elders within the race might not know that we've gone missing. Many of the mythical beasts discussed fervently, trying to guess the ins and outs of this matter. Hue, you guys might have forgotten about this. Don't tell me that you guys don't feel it. This world seems to have gotten even stronger. Black Dragon Pasta laughed coldly. If we were to say that the immemorial saints could still struggle in this world in the past, they wouldn't be able to escape even if an invincible saint were to be captured here. It gives me the feeling that although this world isn't as powerful as the Dragon Realm, it has traces of the Dragon Realm's embryonic form and contains traces of the Immortal Realm's characteristics. Clearly, this world has become more and more powerful. It was one of the first batch of dragons to be imprisoned, so it had the deepest impression of the changes in the world of the classic of mountains and seas during this period of time. It also made it shudder with fear and astonishment at the speed of the world's changes. If it continued to evolve like this, it might really be comparable to the super dragon realm formed by their ancestral dragons' bodies. That's not all. Previously, that human was only a near-ancient sage. However, he has now become a middle-ancient sage and comprehended the laws of time. Isn't the speed of his breakthrough way too fast? It's simply unbelievable. A middle-ancient dragon said in a deep voice. Every time it saw the human Xiaoping, it would feel apprehensive. It felt that the speed of his advancement was too fast. It should be known that if the dragon race wanted to break through, they would need at least tens of millions of years or even hundreds of millions of years. Moreover, that was relatively fast. If they took a little longer, they would not be able to break through in their lifetime and would always be stuck at this bottleneck. However, this human was different. He was simply beyond their imagination. They felt that their chances of escaping from this dimension were getting slimmer and slimmer. Look, these guys are waking up quickly. A near-ancient dragon pointed at the divine beast that had been captured. Whoosh! Immediately the Shangliu, Taotai, Pishio, Qilin, Suani, Zhujian, Bifeng, Phoenix, Xuanwu, and other divine beasts seemed to have regained consciousness and opened their eyes in confusion. What's going on? Where is this place? Wasn't I still in the eternal light realm just now? That's right. We were just fighting for the primordial pool of creation. How did we end up here in the blink of an eye? Immediately these divine beasts woke up. They quickly realized that they were not in the eternal light realm, but in another extremely unfamiliar world. Moreover, there was a group of dragons staring at them. They immediately felt a sense of foreboding, as if something terrible had happened. What are you looking at? You four-legged worms, how dare you look at me? Do you want to die? Don't you know that I'm an ancient Shangliu? An ancient Shangliu immediately became fierce. It felt as if these dragons were looking at it with a very mocking gaze, and it was immediately filled with anger. They were ancient saints who had comprehended the laws of creation after all, and yet they dared to look down on it like this. This was ridiculous. But soon it realized something shocking. What's going on? My magic power, how did they all disappear? Have I lost all my powers? How is this possible? The ancient Shangliu was stunned. It had never thought that something like this would happen to it, that it would lose all its powers completely one day. It could be said that this was more frightening than anything else. That's right. What's going on? My powers have disappeared as well? Damn it. Who the hell did this to us? What's going on? The Taotai, Pishio, Qilin, Suani, Zhujian, Bifeng, and other divine beasts were all stunned, because they had never experienced something like this before. In fact, they had never even heard of it. This was especially so for some of the ancient saints. They had comprehended the laws of creation, and their powers were unprecedentedly strong. They were like gods, high and mighty. How could they accept the feeling of losing all their powers? Did you four-legged worms do something to us? These divine beasts could not help but stare at the surrounding colossal dragons. Do you know what you are doing? Doing this will bring trouble to the dragon race? If today's matter is exposed, no matter how strong the dragon race is, they will not be able to withstand the rage of so many races. Are you trying to bring a calamity to the dragon race? They put on a fierce front and threatened. Again, can you change a few of these lines? I've long been sick of hearing them. Little ones, beat them up for an hour first, then tell them about the rules here. The black dragon Pastita smiled savagely. No problem, boss. Some of the colossal dragons smiled savagely and clenched their fists. What they loved to do the most was to teach newcomers a lesson. Because it would remind them of the time when they had just arrived, when they had been beaten up by the black dragon Pastita and the others. Now they finally had the chance to take revenge. Wait, you bastards. What are you trying to do? Don't be rash. I am an ancient saint. Do you know that I am an ancient saint? The group of divine beasts could not help but cry out in fear. We are beating up ancient saints. The group of colossal dragons pounced forward and beat them up for an hour. They called this beating a baptism, or it could also be called a meeting for newcomers. Third sect leader. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.